Communication is key, and choosing your partner becomes crucial. A project of expansion to international markets requires a long list of tasks and finds an answer in a one-stop destination solution, the only one capable of giving the right answers to the multiple challenges of reaching the desired markets. Save time, gain quality with AP Portugal Tech Language Solutions and its comprehensive range of high-quality linguistic and technological solutions that will deliver the right message to the right audience in any language. Get in touch. If you want to reach a new audience, you should be aware that the right communication is key, and choosing your partner becomes crucial. A project of expansion to international markets requires a long list of tasks and finds an answer in a one-stop destination solution, the only one capable of giving the right answers to the multiple challenges of reaching the desired markets. Save time, gain quality with AP Portugal Tech Language Solutions and its comprehensive range of high-quality linguistic and technological solutions that will deliver the right message to the right audience in any language. Get in touch.
All right, guys. Hello. Let's begin. We can dispense with the advertising. Very happy to see a lot of people here already at this first minute of the event. More than 500 people in the room, and it's been a conference which went beyond our wildest expectations. More than 2,500 people have signed up at this hour. Never expected this, so we are working together with AP Portugal here, who are very proficient in handling the events of this size. It's new for us, and I hope you feel the same excitement as we do at the tremendous success of this event, even before it has even started. It shows how important, how exciting the topic of ChatGPT and large language models is for the language industry. And suddenly, us language professionals, we're in a limelight and a spotlight. Finally, I can explain what I do to my grandmother, right? Before that, I would say language technology, and she would just shrug. Now she heard about it on the I don't know, maybe on the radio, or maybe on TV. Now, I know many of you are getting conflicted feelings. There's a feeling of a huge opportunity, of a gold rush, and also the anxiety, right? Maybe there's a fear of technology, whether it's going to take away our jobs and make a revolution in the language market, and only the AI guys who are controlling the AI will be getting all these spoils of war. Today, I would like to ask the speakers and everyone involved to focus on the opportunity. I think this is the first industry forum dedicated to ChatGPT, but many will follow. I think the whole year we're going to speak about ChatGPT and large language models. So today I want to focus on how to use it, where to apply it, how can I benefit from this in a variety of ways. Now, house rules. This is an event which is probably going to be overbooked. We already have 700 people in the room, and the limit is 1,000. So if anyone cannot make it, please join our stream on YouTube or on LinkedIn, and there we have the extension, so everyone will be able to join. This is number one. For questions, if you have questions to the panelists, then ask them in the QA section. The chat is going to be thousands of messages long, so we'll pay attention to the questions which are in the QA. The program is very packed, so we might only be able to select a few questions to ask the panelists. Feel free to ask as many as you'd like, though, and there'll be a voting mechanism to promote what is the most interesting to the audience today. The questions from LinkedIn and from YouTube will be copied into the QA section of Zoom for the moderators to see what's going on. It's a big crowd today. Okay, final thing, program overview. So what do we have today for you? We will start with a keynote by Marco Trombetti, a visionary in our industry. And then we have 3 panels. One panel is from the vendor side, the companies in technology and language services that have already adopted ChatGPT in some ways and integrated it into their systems. You know, the vendors, they move really, really fast to seize the place under the sun, and already something is going on, something practical. So we can see some of the early developments today. Keep in mind, this is all very, very early. It's a technology which has come around 2-3 months ago, and throughout the year, everyone will be adopting it in some way or another. The second panel is what we call research. And this will be a panel where we have a few people working on large language models here in Europe, discussing how an alternative to ChatGPT is being built, and maybe how you can take part in that process. So bear with us and see how you can join the revolution. The final panel of the day is buy side. On the buy side, it's a bit too early for the implementation, so we'll have localization leaders from prominent companies and with prominent profiles sharing their early experiences and views on how it can be adopted, how it can go in there and change what people do in the enterprise. After all, this is not an event about technology, it is an event about people, right, using that technology and how it is going to change our practices, our careers, our jobs, our businesses. So shoot your questions, let's begin. And for those of you that stay throughout the whole event till the end, there's going to be a surprise guest for you, hopefully. It's still in the making. We went for a fast approach for this conference to be the first forum to go into ChatGPT as a dedicated event. So bear with us if some things go in a slightly chaotic way. This is how we like it. With this, I adjourn my part, and please welcome on stage with your smileys and emojis our visionary of today, Marco Trombetti, entrepreneur and investor. Marco is the CEO of Translated, one of the most exciting companies in our industry, and he is also a CEO of MornMT, one of the leading machine translation providers, the leader according to IDC. Marco is involved with ChatGPT from the beginning in many, many ways. And let's hear about it from his personal experience. Marco, the floor is yours. Excite us, enlighten us, astonish us. There we go. And you're on mute, 2023. 2023, you're on mute. No pressure, yes. Not yet, we can't hear you yet. So let's see what we can do. Can the technical team deal with the... Hold on, Marco, we can't hear you. Hold on, no sound. You can see that going fast sometimes has its bumps. Google, they did a mistake in their BART presentation, and this mistake cost them 100 billion in value. Hopefully, Marco, this wouldn't cost you 100 million. And finally, it works, I think.
So does it work now, Konstantin?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Perfect. Okay. Do you have any echo also? No.
It's good enough. We came here for you, not for the echo.
Okay, perfect. So I'll mute and move the ends if there is any problem. Okay, so thank you so much. Today we talk about AI, singularity, and machine translation, and obviously about the big topic that Konstantin was so good at intercepting, ChatGPT in localization, something that can change some of the things that we do. So I want to start not by talking about technology, I want to start with humanity. And I don't want to present myself this, I'm asking the help of a little girl, a very gifted girl that will remind us why our work is so important. So let's see what Lara has to say to us.
Tieni, prenditi il biscottino, tieni. Di papà?
Daddy.
Come Daddy?
Di mamma?
Nanai.
Nanai. E che vuol dire nanai, scusa?
Puoi dirmi come si dice questo in francese?
Maison.
E questo qui in russo?
Riba.
Ma avete parenti stranieri?
Dimmi, quante lingue sai?
Tutte.
Anche il greco?
Sì.
Che apopoti seri sono le grosses?
Apamicri.
Lara, non si capisce niente. Puoi tradurre per me la signora?
Hello, ladies. The special of the day is Aunt Carmela's eggplant parmigiana.
We'll take it. Okay, sounds good.
Ripeti dopo di me. Welcome.
Oh, welcome.
Willkommen.
Willkommen. One young and Lara, io non ci riesco, non sono mica come te.
Dermi, ora chiedo, cosa ha detto? Ha una... Si chiede se ha qualcosa per sedersi. Sedersi, ma è venuto per lavorare.
Das ist Start, das ist Geschwindigkeit.
Come questi poteva mandare da Sinana con un rubina molto puoi spiegarmi quello che stanno dicendo?
C'è qualcuno fuori, sarà per te.
Buonasera.
Ciao.
Chi è il primo?
And yes, this video was dedicated to all of you, all the people that works in translation, machine translation, localization, because of the impact that you're creating on humanity. And to start with the presentation, there is so many people that I guess some people may not know me already, may not know Translated. So it's a language service provider started in 1999, different from all the other companies because of the symbiosis between human and machine. We've been working in this symbiosis between professional translators and machine translation since 1999. And last year, 2 years ago, we signed what is considered by many the largest contract in the history of translation. And we are the makers of My Memory, MadeCat, Modern MT. And also we invented adaptive MT in 2011. So the reason I think why Konstantin wanted me to talk at this keynote is probably because of the leadership position that Translated as in machine translation, but also I think the balanced view, the fact that I have been involved with language models for a long time, and also my connection, direct and indirect connection with all the work that OpenAI is doing. And to connect you to this part, I want to tell you a very brief story, because very few people understand that translation was the inspiration for creating GPT and many other models. The technology behind, the ideas behind, were all solutions invented for translation. And many people of you are looking at what is happening as something distant, and you probably don't connect that this is really something that is happening because of many work that has been done in our industry by all of you. And so this story started in one day in March. In the same day, I was meeting two people that were completely unrelated at that time, and represent two different areas of my business, my scientific interest in machine translation, and then my investment background. As an investor, I have a venture fund called Pi Campus. And so in the morning, I was meeting with this guy, Lukas Kaiser. So we were hacking machine translation architecture. I was really working on how to create the next level neural network for adaptive machine translation. And Lukas was trying to work on creating a larger a model that was able to understand context at a larger scale in machine translation. And you know what happened is that 3 months after that meeting in March, Lukas co-invented, together with a few more people, the transformer. And if you don't know what the transformer is, was the first model to improve machine translation a lot, neural machine translation a lot, but also transformer, if you look at the name GPT, generative pre-trained transformer, is the technology behind GPT, ChatGPT, and all the very large language model that you see out there. Lukas since then became the mentor, the main mentor behind the School of Artificial Intelligence that I co-founded. We worked together before in machine translation. And then he was at Google at that time. He left Google to go to OpenAI to continue his research. In the afternoon, I was meeting two other people, Michael Sable and Sam Altman. Because of my investment work, I do partner a lot with Y Combinator, an accelerator where we do a lot of co-investment together. Michael is the CEO of Y Combinator, and Sam Altman is the president. And so what happened is that few after, Michael became the first investor in Translated, the very first, and Sam left Y Combinator to go and work full-time in OpenAI, the company that very few years ago he founded as a nonprofit. And so two worlds that were completely unrelated, scientific interest for machine translation and investment community, they all go in one direction. And because all my connections were going to do that, I paid a lot of attention to what was happening there. And I've been paying attention for a long time. And so translation, why does it matter so much? We're seen as being the inspiration between some of this great technology, but the true reason behind it, because this is one of the most important problems we have to solve. So first, language is the most human thing out there. It's very simple for humans, the most complex task for a machine, okay? And language differentiates us from all the other species. So every species have developed motor control, the capacity of going around, but only humans have developed complex language. Language is the way we evolved our species. Without language, we were not able to plan a future and cooperate versus the future. Bees, ants, they can cooperate on solving short-term problems for survival. Through language, humans were able to predict the future. Language is probably one of the most important and key elements behind human evolution. And so allowing everyone to understand and be understood is one of the biggest problems for humanity. And we cannot do it simply by teaching people English, for example, or Esperanto. We have to allow everyone to speak their own language, to preserve the culture. And that will be the ultimate goal that we have in our industry, because if you achieve that goal, we can unlock the next level of human evolution. And I think that going to Mars is important, climate change is important, but if we don't solve language first, we'll not have the level of global cooperation we need in order to achieve the goal. So what is the progress going in that direction? Are we solving the translation problem? And why are we so interested in understanding at what speed are we going there? Is that because being the most complex activity in artificial intelligence is also a great proxy for general artificial intelligence. So the more progress we make in machine translation, and very soon this will be applied to the other domains. And so Translated collected this data that is extremely interested about the time to edit, the amount of time translators spend correcting words. And this lasts for 15 years in MakeIt, and I'm presenting here since 2015. And if you can see, the time for editing each word goes up and down, but the trend is quite linear and is going down. the machine translation is improving. What is the singularity point? The singularity is when a machine is better than the human at translating. And so to do this test, we gave 100% exact matches that did not require any edit to professional translators and measured how much time they need to say this is perfect, even if they don't apply changes. And this is 1 second per word. We don't need time to edit to go to 0, we just need to get to 1. And if you can see, this is happening month over month. So many people said to me when they see the slides, they say, Marco, yes, we see progress, but we know language is so complex and it will be difficult for machine now to make more progress in the next months, because in order to improve now, machines need to understand reality. They need to have a great model of the real world in order to do great translations. And so we asked ourselves, is that information available? Does the machine have the information in order to translate correctly? And so we made a quick experiment. We take a sentence, we translate that with machine translation to another language, and then we went into the center of the neural network, the encoder, and trained a model that is taking the semantic representation of the model, so what the model is thinking, what is in the brain of the machine, and created a text-to-image system in order to see what the machine is thinking. And this is, there is a tie, a telephone, a CRT monitor, probably a paper dictionary there. That information is not there. The level of understanding the machine has of the reality is much more. By looking at this experiment, we understood that the model is able to have a great understanding of the reality. It's just that we are not able to extract this information yet. Because this test was so impressive, I wanted to go a little further. So I asked it, obviously, okay, what is a successful language translator in the future? Okay. And I wanted to see what the machine is thinking, because maybe the machine knows something more than we do. And boom, this is the answer. I guess that this is not a telephone. This is probably a device that extracts the information directly from the brain, a brain-to-computer interface. The mind of the translator is the entire planet Earth, and is dressed like, or she, as a Star Trek. Incredible. So to get to the topic of today, ChatGPT. What it is ChatGPT, what are the opportunities for us? First is a reasonably good next word predictor. So a little history. The transformer, as I mentioned before, was invented at Google in 2017. And very recently, the CEO of Google said, we're not going to offer this technology to user because it poses a reputational risk to Google. In the meanwhile, this was November 2022, ChatGPT launches and went from 0 to 100 million users in 2 months, making it the fastest growing app in the history of the internet. Google, immediately after, launches Google Bard and lost $100 billion in market evaluation for a small error that ChatGPT did at least 10 times more during the last year. What is the morale here, which is extremely interesting for all of you, is that in startups, the market will remember your successes and forget your failure. And in corporates, it's just the opposite. This is a great news for any of you that would like to get into this business. There is opportunity and you have an unfair competitive advantage over the monopolies. So, but what is actually ChatGPT? And I tried this example to explain you in simple terms. So language model exists since ever and really is about predicting the next word. In 2000, if you were the author of Harry Potter, you were writing a book. Doesn't matter how many chapters you already wrote, you're writing this text. The only thing that machine sees is the last 3 words, no finer boy, and you want something that predicts the next word. Can you guess what the next word is? No finer boy is extremely difficult. And even if it's difficult, this was used to do translation in 2000, and it was not that bad, okay? We waited until 2010 in order to get 5-word context. And so now the system is not able to see the content, but the previous, but it can add 2 words. There was no finer boy, question mark. For me, it's still hard to predict. What is the big difference with ChatGPT and GPT and large language models now? 1,500 words context. Here, I'm just showing the last 100 words. There is 1,400 words even before that the model is able to look into it. And now with all this context, you can say the word is anywhere, the one that's missing. This is the difference. There is no secret magic, no secret technology behind, no tricks. There is no specific components, no human knowledge. A large language model is simply a next word predictor. If you say, why is the system able to answer my question then? If I say, how old is Barack Obama? Because it predicts the next word. If someone is asking, how old is Barack Obama? Then the next word is Barack Obama is an age. So it's just a prediction. And what I say is unreasonably good. It was never expected that the language model was able to start discussing with us, giving us answer by just predicting the next word. That's fascinating. So how do we train these models? This is the sample of the data from Llama, so the model that was trained by Facebook. And this data is shared among all the models. 95% of the models use the same data. So Common Crawl, a snapshot of the internet, C4, which is a version filtered of Common Crawl, GitHub, so code, Wikipedia, books, scientific papers, and another code. This amount of data, if you can see, is about 4 or 5 terabytes of data. And it's trillions of words, it's very big, it's a lot of knowledge, but not so much bigger than what you can actually store in your computer, okay? This is ChatGPT. This data trained a next word predictor. So to bring this closer to our world, okay, to the world of translation, I can make these other representation that can help you. So a basic language model in the left is something unconstrained that generates the next word without any kind of constraint, just the most probable word. It generates very fluent text, but it's not accurate at all. What the model will say may be completely false, not true. It's just probable that exists in the language. On the other spectrum, on the right side, the basic machine translation technology is highly constrained. So you generate the next word by looking at what is in the source. So it needs to represent the source. It's highly constrained by the source content. This gives you very accurate translation, but sometimes too literal. The magic that happened in these years is this. So we went from here to here. ChatGPT became more accurate compared to GPT-3, and is still fluent and quite accurate. On the other side, with adaptive MT, we went from accurate but literal now to accurate and quite fluent. So these 2 words are in 2 different directions are coming closer. Obviously, our industry, because of the work we do, we have to start from the right side because translations cannot lie. We cannot just generate things that are fluent, but that do not represent the original. This is another way of viewing the comparison. So language models are quite poor at translating if you use them for translation. Certain things are great in other places. So in translation quality, overall, they're quite bad. If you do proper human evaluation, you will find a lot of errors, many more errors than what you find in Google Translate, Microsoft. And if you look at accuracy, so how much trust you can give to the model is actually very low. Because in general, it doesn't make a lot of mistakes, but those mistakes that are made sometimes will be considered very severe error in our industry. It's also very slow, 5 seconds per word, 5 seconds to generate a translation. So while it's acceptable for the use cases in our industry to have systems that answer in about 300 milliseconds, but there is a few things that they do very well. Context capability. So think about gender or plurals. The model is not translating sentence by sentence, it's translating document level, so they can do this learning extremely efficiently. And so they never make mistakes actually in gender and plurals. The other thing that the model does extremely well is rephrasing. So something that you cannot do today, you want to say, translate this in a very formal way. The model is great at this. There is very few use cases now of this, but can be useful in the future. And one great advantage is noisy source. So if you have a content that a lot of errors in the source, large language models are better at translating those kind of content because they can correct easily the error of the machine because they have a better representation of reality and because they take some risk. So it's more fluent, but take some risk. And when it's ambiguous, it's okay to take risk. So there is many things to do. And I predict that language models will work on solve those problems, and also adaptive MT and static MT will also work in implementing more context and this capability. So the future looks extremely interesting, and we will probably have multiple solutions to choose from these two different angles. So if you think that ChatGPT is the only solution out there, what I want to tell you is that you have multiple options that you can use, okay? And the first I want to mention is Bloom by a consortium called Big Science. They trained GPT-3 and released it completely open source, free to download, the model already ready and pre-trained, and the license is very permissive. You can do commercial application whatever you want. The quality is quite good. It's not as good as the other models I will mention in a second, but is a great solution to start. There is Megatron from NVIDIA, there is Chinchilla and Llama. And Llama is probably my favorite one because it outperformed GPT-3 in most competition, was released by Facebook last week, and Facebook was so kind to release this for free download. So the license does not allow commercial application, but it's completely free. Great alternatives out there. So don't think that this is a monopoly. This is something where you have multiple options if you want to start using these technologies. So how are they going to affect our industry? So translation exists when it's more convenient than creating the content from scratch. We do exist because we're convenient, fast, accurate, low cost, compared to rewriting the content from the beginning. And so if you understand this, you understand what kind of things may change in the future. So one important thing that may happen is that people will start generating, using these tools, content directly in the target language. And then instead of having a translator, they will employ instead of copywriter in order to fix the content. And you know something? It's very probable that this approach will create better quality content than a translation. Okay, it will be less literal, more adapted, more fluid, like a copywriter can do. So this is a solution where actually, if you're doing translation, you are probably losing money. And if you're doing copywriting, the opportunity is bigger for you. The second approach that could happen is content restructuring, which is super interesting. Probably, to me, the best application of large language models right now, summarization. Let's think about this. You take 1,000 reviews from a product on Amazon, and you create a new content that describes what the users thinks about this product in a human readable way. This is a new content that will require new translation. And because it's so easy to create this content, then I guess that there will be many applications and much more content created by restructuration of content. Last application is that in general, there will be more content. So nobody is using language models to create content per se. They're using these tools in order to help humans to create better content at a lower cost, faster. And so if you remember my previous slide, translation exists because it's more convenient than creating the content from scratch. We need to adapt. So there would be a lot more of machine translation and a lot more of human translation with AI. So we need to design new solutions that are faster, cheaper, and better quality. And if you see the graph of the singularity in AI, I think this is possible because the technology is helping also us to do that. And we have to stay in line. Big opportunity also there. So also outside our industry, why the smartest people in the world love ChatGPT? And so first is that because everyone thinks that it will improve very quickly. The big change between GPT-3 and ChatGPT It was a model called ChatGPT that was trained on 33,000 human examples. Only 33,000 human examples. A work that, let's say, is an investment of $100K, $100,000, compared to a training cost of 10 million and research cost of 100 million, is nothing. So the big opportunity here, small amount of data, we made a huge increase in quality. So everybody's thinking that trust and freshness can actually be solved in the future. People want it. 100 million users in 2 months, that's a world record. So there is market. The market is extremely big. This is not a better way of doing search. The people that work in language models believe that this is a completely new system that is attacking the use cases between search, okay, in a different way. And last thing is an open competition. So there are few barriers to enter. The data is free and available for everyone. The architectures are free and available for everyone. The barrier is the training cost. They started with 10, 15 million to train GPT-3. Last week, Facebook, I made some calculation. I think it was $1.5 million to train it. That's basically 10 times X. And I think we can go very quickly to numbers that will make it accessible to anyone. So it's a very interesting space. It's not a space for one player. So, but the big problem we have with generative systems, I think, is that they are breaking the internet deal, what I call the internet deal. Why should I create content if I don't get visitors? The entire internet until now, the fundamentals are that you create content so that you get indexed by search engine and people can find you. And so there is a clear benefit and incentive in creating content, getting visitors. Then you sell advertising, you sell services, you sell products. Language models are breaking the deal because if I search into the language model, I will get the answer there by the combined knowledge of everyone else. So this is breaking the deal. So what could happen? So my first personal reaction was, you know something? I will ban OpenAI to crawl my website. I don't want my content to help them in order not to send me users, okay? And this lasted for me about a day. So, and then I realized that how can I influence that? If I change my robot.txt files so that they cannot index our website, am I really stopping them? No. So I took a completely different approach and I say, you know something? I will generate massive amount of content on our website, tens of millions of pages, by explaining why Translated is the best translation company in the world so that I can influence the model, okay? And if you influence the model, then basically you will get the model to say what you want. And but obviously OpenAI and many others are fighting back because they are creating AI text classifier. They want to identify content that is created automatically. And very honestly, I don't want to pollute the internet with massive amount of low quality content. That's right. So this, I think that people may do kind of things like this, but then there would be convergence, okay? And convergence is about two things. Basically LLMs driving some traffic, and you can test this on perplexity.ai as a search engine. You ask questions like ChatGPT, but other than the answer, they will give you also the references of where this information is coming from. This is called a reverse model, an inverse model. So by the text, you predict what was the URL that generated that information. It would drive some traffic. But the other most interesting thing is that people will start opening up their website through APIs so that language models can actually interact with your website and buy stuff, services. So I want Translated to be able to offer human translation services through OpenAI. I will create an integration. Let's say the language store, the language app store is a new level of app store where we will all publish a way for language model to interact. And so I want the new iPhone, I just ask for it. I want to find an Airbnb in 200 kilometers on the beach, 4 bedrooms. Is a much better way of searching than just using a location-based search on a human UI. So there is enormous opportunity. And I think that if language models will succeed and will progress as they're doing, this could be a nice new organization of the internet. But we need to move fast. And because if you think the language models, so language is the new paradigm, okay, we're searching through language, etc. I want you to think about this. You need to act fast because also large language model will be soon replaced in some use cases. So language is very compressed, but it's very low bandwidth. And it's convenient for humans, but it's not good for human-computer interaction. And instead, brain-computer interfaces can replace some use cases. And if you think, oh, Marco, you're talking about the future, something that, who cares about that? But I want to tell you something. Elon Musk resigned from OpenAI and founded Neuralink, a brain-computer interface company. So there is people that thinks that this may happen even sooner, okay? And I think so we need to act now. The opportunity is now, is going to last sometimes, but not an infinite amount of time. So to conclude, translation is by far the hardest problem in AI, but it was the main source of inspiration of all the work that you're seeing in large language models. For the first time, a non-biotech company is leading machine translation. And this is not about translated, as you saw, the IDC report. It's a success for the entire industry. We're getting back a piece of the market that we should own. OpenAI reminded us that new ideas have an unfair competitive advantage. They are replacing some big tech. They're winning users every single day. And it was a startup with a new idea. And AI and language are what everyone is talking about today. Everyone. And so you are in the right place at the right time. All the people that work in machine translation have these two things together, AI and language. You are in the right place in the right time. So if you want to have an impact in the future of humanity, you absolutely can. At Translated, we do say we believe in humans. And what I want to tell you personally is that not only I do believe in human, I do believe in you. I believe in the capacity that this community have in inventing new solutions to allow everyone to understand and be understood. And if we solve this problem, this would be the most important achievement of our industry. Thank you.
I'll be the applause, Marco. It was amazing. Look at the amount of emojis streaming through the screen. When you said, I believe in you, that was electrifying. It was really insightful to find out that ChatGPT is not an omnipotent deity that knows everything about the meaning of life, the universe, and everything, but actually a word predictor. And there are people working actively on not only integrating it, but also fooling it in many ways. And you can write your history in any way you want if you have computer skills. That was fantastic. Thank you so much. I understand we are a little bit behind the time. We don't have the opportunity to ask you 1,000 questions, but if there is sufficient interest, would you be open to hold a follow-up session, Ask Me Anything with Marco somewhere later this week or maybe next week?
Konstantin, wherever you ask, I'll do. With big pleasure.
Okay, I'll take up on your promise. So send us some questions for Marco and we'll send you a date when we can follow up. Marco, again, thank you so much. And with this, I bid you adieu for the moment, because I'm sure you want to see what others have to say. And I would like to welcome on stage Manuel Herranz and the panel of the vendor side of the companies that have already adopted ChatGPT in some way. Let's see what's cooking up.
Hi, hello everyone. I think my video is okay. Start my video.
What we can do with the technical stuff?
Here we are now. It's wonderful.
Perfect. Hey, Manuel, we can hear you. We can see you.
Good. And it's much
nice
better than the trial.
Steve Jobs look with the turtleneck.
Yeah, different shirt. Different shirt. Yeah, I'm in Paris, so it's a little bit cold. You need this kind of clothing.
All right, so the floor is yours. Please introduce the panel, and we'll have, of course, some examples of how ChatGPT has been already put into different solutions. Learn from the other vendor companies and see what you can do in your business or in your organization.
Indeed, indeed. It was a very enlightening talk by Marco, and many questions were coming in already, which I will share with the panel. We have 3 panelists here, people that I admire personally a lot, and we're going to I'm going to present them all, the 3 of them. There's Diego Crocieri, there's Olga Bregovaya from SmartLink, and there is Frederick, with which we had the pleasure of having some little talk the other day, very enlightening, the work they're doing. And I'm going to ask the panel to introduce themselves, to give a little short introduction to who they are. You can start with opening statements, share slides, as Marco has done, and then I will pose some questions, some challenging questions to you, and then also questions from the audience. But I don't want to take any more of your time. I'm going to introduce first Olga, if you are here.
Hello.
The floor is yours, Olga.
Hi, Manuel. So the floor is mine?
The floor is yours.
Okay, wonderful. So Olga Bregovaya with SmartLink now, running machine translation and AI vision for the company, been in the industry. You know those intros that you send to conferences? I pretty much reuse the same intro, except the number of years is just increasing and increasing. So the later number is close to 3 decades, being in language technology and in machine translation, natural language processing space. So why am I here? Why am I so excited about the panel? Is things change so insanely fast. In the past, it was like, oh, cool, we have Levenshtein distance, we have fuzzy matching, cool. Here is translation memory, right? And machine translation was evolving at a certain pace. Now you fall asleep, you wake up, new LLM is born. And then the question is, what do you do with this? And we with SmartLink, since I'm representing vendor side of the panel, we always keep that balance between test, validate, deploy, rather than just following the hype and trying to boil the ocean. So to go into practical examples, first things first, I dare to disagree with Marco a little bit. In August 2022, Gartner published a report saying that 85% of AI initiatives fail. If so, I would argue that natural language processing tasks for AI are probably the most successful space for it. While it's challenging, the language is structured, there is plethora of data. So there is, I think, our playground. This is where I agree with Marco. Our playground is probably the hugest playground for large language models. So back to practicalities. First things first, maybe I'm a little bit itchy about, yes, we talk about ChatGPT, but why only? First of all, and this is what we do at SmartLink, we pay attention to different large language models, possible applications of them, and equally to different flavors of GPT. And it's very important even between flavors of DaVinci, you get certain results for certain tasks better, and certain results and certain tasks you get lower performance. In terms of deployment, we start with BERT years ago, and then with Roberta, which we were able to train with data. So that's with our own performance data. So that's one of the applications where we started with. And again, now I think, and I'll repeat it again, our vision is it's most important. Just like we have selection mechanisms to select best machine translation output, it's most important to capitalize on what's available and not just stay myopic on one application. And obviously, ChatGPT is the fastest growing application, but let's make sure we pay attention to others. Now, Manuel, I can speak a little bit more about practicalities, or I can leave it to questions. Stop here.
Well, we need to stop here and then introduce the rest of the panel,
Okay,
and then we'll have an open discussion.
Wonderful.
So the next victim on the panel is Diego Crocieri, a person that I admire a lot, has a very interesting and upcoming LSP in Italy. So Diego, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Manuel. Hope you hear me fine. Yeah, my name is Diego Cresceri. I own Creative Words, LSP based in Italy. We are a small company still, going fast. The reason why I'm here is because Kostya loves me. That's probably the biggest reason. And we've been testing and using ChatGPT in different scenarios for our own company. So I guess I will be able to share the point of view of small companies, small LSP. I'm not using it for translation, honestly, in this point in time. But I think there are many other ways we can leverage this technology in our companies. So this is what I'm here for. Happy to be here. Thank you, everybody. It's amazing the number of people that are here. Thank you for the comment on glasses. I was expecting that. So the floor to Frederic, I guess, and happy to answer any question.
That's right. And the third person is Frederic from Easy Translates, a company that has recently received some funding in order to implement and augment the capacities of ChatGPT in their offering. So we're eager to hear more about you, Frederic.
Yeah, hi. My name is Frederic Petersen, and I'm the co-founder of Easy Translate. We have existed for 13 years, but in the past 3 years, we have basically pivoting the whole business model, going into a hybrid of a translation management software and a marketplace where we facilitate the connection to freelancers, freelance translators, and copywriters. In this case, we are not actually charging anything for the actual translations. We are only providing the payments and the calculations directly between the freelancers and the customers. So I was told to also just do a short demo of our current implementation of ChatGPT OpenAI. I don't know if I just should jump straight to that now, or when would be the perfect point?
I think, okay, with everybody being in the panel, I think this is the time. I'd like, before we do that, oh no, let's go for it, because then questions will come later. I want to talk about emerging use cases and examples of ChatGPT being integrated. So it's wonderful, it's great that you have that already.
Perfect. Okay, so let me know if you are able to see my screen.
Mm-hmm.
So basically here now we are in our software, and what we've done is creating the content generation tool here, where you have some predefined prompts that you can give the product. You can also use the advanced settings here to create some creativity and to control the maximum length, among others. So if we just use the current one we have here, it will straight out start to write a blog post about the importance of localization. But what we have learned from this, and we only have it live for kind of like a month, and we have already been generating more than 1 million words, we can see that this is really much just a party trick. So it seems super nice, but how can we actually implement this into an enterprise content creation flow? So what we're building now is basically, we are looking into releasing this prototype I will disclose for this little group of 1,000 people, where you actually is able to build templates to create hundreds of content samples for products or for category text or others. So how you're going to build this is basically by using content reference, where you say, this is something similar to this text I would like to have generated. I would like to define the main subjects. I would also like to include keywords for SEO optimization, among others. When you have kind of set those briefs, you're able to save the template. And hereafter, you can actually go back to the plain text. You will generate the content, and it will be similar to the content that is as a reference. What we think is super important here is that this here is always a foundation for the content. And what we have learned from our customer is that actually sourcing it to freelancers is a essential part of the workflow. So we also use this as a general content brief. So all the details here is included for the copywriters to actually start directly in improving the content. But also about improving the content, it's important to learn from it. Why we also has released a fine-tuning model where we fine-tune on customer-based level, on the changes that is done so that the content actually is getting more and more refined towards the audience group for the specific company. So we really much believe that what we have seen is that that this year is working on, I mean, a lot of different languages. We have tested out in Danish. We have customers using it in Finnish. And where we really see the big opportunity here is actually being able to create content for your local markets from scratch. And we also believe that this might be a competition to actually translating the content, because you're basically starting the opposite way. Also, as Marco mentioned, there's of course the nature of some content that always would have some kind of source, but at least for marketeers and for product description and others, it would make a lot of sense to actually go with creating, the content from scratch with these AI models.
Very interesting, Frederick. So now I'm going to open the table for the three of you with some questions that we had ready here, and then some questions specifically to each one of you. We've touched upon some emerging use cases. Very good use case, Frederick, that you have there. Goes in line quite a bit with what Marco was mentioning, not so much on translation, but on content generation and pre-drafting. So what do you think the impact of ChatGPT can have on the business relationships on the translation industry? Or is there a role, for example, for a prompt engineer, for someone that can ask the right questions to the software?
Who's taking this one?
I can start out. I think how we kind of like approach it is that the templates in our kind of universe is basically the prompts. And there's other big players that have done a lot of research within prompts on how to generate the best possible outputs. I think this year will be kind of like some of the secret ingredients for a lot of companies. How are you actually making sure that you, in each customer specific case, generate the most comprehensive content? So that is at least on that side, and my comments to that.
Good, good, excellent. Let me move back to Olga. You've been quiet for a while. Olga, anything to mention on that front, or would you like me to?
Yeah, I think first of all, what it's going to do to business engagements, right? Translation, as much as we love our industry, translation is still not an afterthought, but it's a second step, right? I think now the opportunity for us, be it LSPs, be it technology providers, is come in as content owners and end-to-end content partners, coming from be it source generation, right, as Frederick just said, be it source pre-optimization for further translation, be it target generation where translation is not applicable, all the way to validation, right? As Marco rightfully said, that reliability and trust are yet to be gained. So now you actually come in as a full-scale content partner. And I think that's the huge business changer and also pricing model changer. You don't price per word for being a content partner. So I think that's, in terms of the business models, that's what I want to say. And maybe later when we get to jobs, I also have a few things to say about what I think the next generation of jobs related to deployment of language models is going to be.
Indeed. And Diego, what about you? Because, okay, you mentioned you're a small LSP. Do you see yourself competing with marketing agencies? Could that be possible?
Well, if you think of the name of my company, that was my dream from the start, actually, to compete with marketing agencies. And yeah, I do see myself working on content generation, also on top of translation. Absolutely. We've been doing that for a long time already, be it product descriptions or, marketing content, emails, email campaigns. With this tool, I guess, we can leverage it and do more of it. I want to mention that I think technology needs to solve a problem. And the reason why I started to use ChatGPT is to solve my marketing and content production problem for my own company. So this is what I'm doing at the moment. I'm using it to not for the customers. Well, I do use for the customers also now, but I start to use it for my own marketing needs. We do produce a lot of content. Not every time we use English, mother tongue, native language copywriters. And for small content, it really helps us. So the product we are building with my other company, Creative AI, is for helping small to medium businesses to be there, to be online, and to produce content with the pace that is needed nowadays.
Yeah, funny you mentioned that, because I was in a meeting here in Paris earlier on this morning, and I was speaking to a very large think tank, and they said, we're going to revamp our whole website, and we're going to improve our titles and improve our descriptions and meta descriptions, and everything's going to be made more efficient with what we've tried with ChatGPT over the last month. Okay, so let me now move into some of the questions that we have here. There's a lot of questions from the audience. Many won't be able to be answered. Some live. There are people already complaining that some questions have been marked as answered. They are not. Many are for Marco, so we are afraid we can't answer for them. But Olga, back to you. What do you think implementations such as ChatGPT will be in the translation? Well, to rephrase it, what can an implementation of ChatGPT be in a translation management platform and subsequently enterprise scale translation process?
Sorry, just so I don't forget anything, I admit I have a little cheat sheet on the side to make sure that I have a lot of thoughts, so I had to keep myself organized. So I think, again, just like with any translation process, you need to design your translation strategy in collaboration, if you're a large enterprise, in collaboration with your translation management platform or LSP or both partners. And I think it's all about identifying, not breaking what works, but identifying opportunities where you actually can optimize, streamline, and automate. So when it applies directly to ChatGPT, I think the touch points are pretty clear, at least from what I know about enterprise translation process. As we already spoke about it, possible source generation. So on the actual source side, right? But then your source, be it source generation or be it source, we already know that what controlled authoring is. So I guess this is a new phase of controlled, or whatever the right word is, authoring. Then obviously it all needs to connect. So you still need your source repository still needs to connect to the TMS. And then what can happen on the TMS front? Again, source pre-edit, right? So that's one touch point. Then from there you go to machine translation. I think we all probably would agree that ChatGPT is not quite there for machine translation. So from there, you go into machine translation. Then there is this whole area of APE, automated post-editing. And again, we touched on it briefly. There are tons of things that you could do with be it ChatGPT or other flavors of GPT, other large language models, in terms of, okay, machine translation output is still a little bit subpar, right? We're not there with human parity, but because of the fluency, there are tons of things such as improving tone of voice, correcting grammar, and a lot of other things that you can do. So I think that's another touch point, possibly. And then there is the whole LQA. We invest a ton of money into language quality estimation, language quality evaluation. And I think the capabilities, the actual possibilities of utilizing large language models and ChatGPT including for validating the quality of the final output, that's another endpoint. So I think I've identified at least 5.
Good, excellent, very good question, answer, Olga. And I see that you agree with Marco in the fact that machine translation, adaptive or customized machine translation, can beat ChatGPT. So there will be a hybrid, or people will be building hybrid solutions here. Very good.
Just maybe to add also on Olga's, I think that, I think the key takeaway is that there is not one technology that wins. I think also it's basically how you combine the technologies to achieve your goal. And I very much also believe in that we should, when working with enterprise clients, not only, of course, we need to listen to how the workflows and how the processes is, but also actually support in improving workflows, because I think that that is some of the most interesting things when coming, to specific company use cases, how much you actually can benefit from now supporting the whole content lifecycle. And I think that is what we have really made Easy Translate, look into this direction, because now we actually is not just focusing on the translation part. We are focusing on saying, okay, if you're prototyping in Figma, how could you use content generation tool to generate the content, to mirror it into your localization flow, to use machine translation, custom machine translation, all these kind of aspects. And there's always, all these different empty solutions out there, and it's never, one-stop shop solution. So maybe Google's custom machine translation solution would work very good for XYZ, and then in other cases it would be DeepL or others. So we very much believe in actually supporting the more broader area to support all the use cases.
Good point. Good point, Frederick. In fact, you were my next in line for questions. I have one here, but I'm receiving tons and tons of questions. About 26 Mark has answered. Some of them were about sound and video, but I don't think we'll have time to run through them all. I have about 16. Some of them you have already touched on, the issues about privacy, a lot about privacy, that perhaps we can touch upon later. But Frederick, do you think that will ChatGPT be able to learn my company's tone of voice, for example, or become better at generating content specifically for my audience?
Yeah, so I think that, and back to also when I did the demo of the current version of OpenAI or ChatGPT in our software, it was incredible how quick the feedback was from our customers. I mean, it's good, but for us to use it in an enterprise setup, it would need actually three things. It would need to have, templates so that they can structure and actually make sure that every time they generate content, it is in the same layout and including maybe specific keywords and others. They would need to be able to, it needs to learn from the edits they do, or else it would be too time consuming as well. And the third thing is that combining it with a marketplace of freelancers, copywriters that can actually take on the task either when, they reach bottlenecks, or maybe if they want to generate, create copywriting content for new markets. So what we've done here is basically testing out how we could train on specific customers' chains on. So basically how it goes is that you write a prompt, you get an output, and then you have a final output, which is the where there have been the human modifications. And it's incredible how quick it actually learns from those outputs. And also I think Marco pointed out the amount of prompts that they have trained with in ChatGPT is actually not that much. And I think that I have at least created 1,000 prompts in our own service. Yeah, so it's actually pretty sufficient how much you can gain from structuring it again. Structuring it in some workflows and gaining the data for the customers to benefit from it in the actual workflows. So yes, I think that that this would definitely be possible to some extent. There's always, and especially with the current OpenAI model available, it has been trained, I think, up to 2021. So there's some data that is just incorrect. So here there is a big need of the human fine-tuning, I would say.
Yeah, I think that this answers some of the questions on the Q&A about customization or tuning, fine-tuning the model. So what do you think it will take for ChatGPT to become relevant in an enterprise content flow?
Sorry. So what we have done is we have basically made out of beta version where we have selected some customers that have is now participating in the beta program, to being able to put numbers on what is it that it actually takes to bring it from the more generic version you have now to actually if you will, understanding the company's tone of voice and also being able to streamline the communication towards the audience better. And I think that there will be a big impact on which language that you are doing this for. So I'm pretty confident English will go pretty fine. If you go to Danish or Finnish, I think there'll be less improved. So, but time will tell.
Okay. Now, Diego, back to you. That was very interesting, Fred. It also calls for how well or bad ChatGPT is doing in certain languages. I do have feedback from users in other languages that are not English, large languages, not French and Spanish, not English. That information is not that great. So in your case, Diego, what can a company like yours, like Creative, do to leverage the power of such a tool, both inward and customer facing?
Yeah, so we let's talk about customer facing. The last experiment we did was with product description for a shoe company, and it was actually great. So it was a mixture actually of, let's call it technology, so putting things together, putting keywords together, and so shoe features and so on, and ChatGPT, and it was actually great. And that was for Italian and for English. This is a case I'm presenting to the customer. I've been experimenting without telling them for the moment, but I will soon. Next week we have a meeting. I want to present this, and it's amazing. I mean, the level of creativity that it's showing goes far beyond what a human can produce. This is what I'm experiencing at the moment. In terms of inward facing for our marketing, I have to say that English was great compared to non-native English copywriting. For Italian, I don't like it very much for the moment being, but the truth is we've not been training it for the moment being. So I guess it will become better with time and with training. But again, it's a big time saver for us already, even without spending a lot of effort on it.
Yeah, well, we know that version 4 next year, to be released next year, I talked about that in my blog last week, is 500 times more powerful. I mean, this one has been training 175 billion parameters, and the next one is in the trillions, 100 trillions. It's a number that escapes my mind. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if we have completed our own questions and explanation and demos, we can move to the part that I like most in roundtables, which is live Q&A, and there are tons and tons of questions. I'm sorry, I have to apologize for people that are going to be left out with very interesting questions. I've been browsing through them as you spoke. A common theme that I'm finding in many of them is privacy. The concern about privacy. What happens, and I think Marco touched upon this as well, I don't want OpenAI to crawl my websites, but on second thoughts, maybe I won't, because I want to influence the way AI is built. But the other type of privacy issues from the questions that I see here, my personal data is flying around, my clients' details are flying, product names of that stuff that doesn't exist yet, that's going to be launched in the Christmas campaign, are going to be released out. What are your thoughts on that?
Can I say something that is not really very popular here? I mean, even with machine translation, we are concerned about putting the privacy, the client data on DeepL or whatever, for content that will be published the next day. I mean, what do we think that DeepL, these companies are doing with their own data? I mean, what's the actual risk here? That's a question. It's not an answer. But I mean, are we not worrying too much about the privacy for some scenarios? Or guys,
I could answer. I
can unmute myself and
I would have something to say about that, but I'm just a moderator. I will let Olga and Fred step in.
I think as far as machine translation goes, Diego, I think to some extent we have solved it through the service agreements, right? And if you pay for your API key, then certain things just do not happen, right? And your data is basically passed through that's not used for further, or at least that's the easiest message to deliver, right? But then, Manuel, to your point about, so I think that's part of it, right? And at some point we'll talk about SLAs, and we'll talk about compliance, and we'll talk about just like, we already went through this era with machine translation. And I think we're at a pretty healthy place there. So I think the same cycle just needs to repeat itself at least. And you know, there is always this balance. Do you want to drive innovation and contribute, or do you want to stick, or do you want to hold on to your data? So again, I've lived it a couple of times, so I think it already happened. But Manuel, I have a strong suspicion that we would also want to talk about anonymization, right? And how we can handle named entities. Did we not? Maybe not.
That's my pet subject, but
Right.
I'm the moderator here. I'm not on the floor, so I'm trying to avoid that.
Right, but I think actually, just to add to this, I think that ChatGPT is a great way of controlling how you process named entities and what you do with them, and how much you keep, and how much you filter out, and how much you anonymize. And I'll stop here.
Fred, Diego, any thoughts about that?
I mean, I think from our side, we take data processing as one of our most important part of our business. That's also why we got our ISO 27001 in December. But when it comes to actually content generation, it's about creating non-existing content. So, I mean, if you're planning to resign a colleague, I don't think you should put in their security numbers. So I think that there is, of course, some elements that needs to be taken, some course, also on the customer side, and there is probably an educational aspect from us as vendors to the customers. But I think that comparing generating content with actually machine translation and others, it's probably not as problematic as running all the other systems where there's maybe sensitive data that is getting processed, and it's not possible always to anonymize it in the way. And as you also mentioned, again, there is some great opportunities using the new OpenAI solutions to do so. But I think that that was a vague answer, I know. But
Manuel, I'm sorry, can I interrupt just for 1 second? I have a short announcement for our audience. We have an upvote function here in Q&A chat. We have 30 questions and a very limited time, so please upvote for the questions you like the most, and we will take them first. Okay? Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, sure. So I'm moving through a question. There's a very good one that was waiting for you about from Raphael about plagiarism. Do you think any copyright infringement issues can arise from the use of ChatGPT and content that was co-created or pseudo-created by the use of ChatGPT?
I think that if you have tried to ask, they have this DALL-E feature, and I guess that was also what Marco used to explain kind of like the thoughts of the engine. But here you can ask to write something in Picasso style, and it basically gets this blurry area where the signature should have been. So I think that it could potentially create some issues for the providers of the solution over time, I would say.
What also happened, we probably all follow this in the visual space, right? There was conversation about like when the whole AI art popped up, and the question was, what do you do with the attribution, and how do you compensate the artists whose art was actually used to further produce AI art? I don't know where it landed, but I know that this conversation was definitely taking place in the visual arts area, specifically, especially when social media got completely taken over by AI art. So I think it's a very, very fair question, what to do with the attribution, right? Because it's trained on something, and this data was created by someone. So
Not sure.
Let me ask you another one. This is a good one. Would ChatGPT complement or replace existing CAD tools? I think this is pointed to workflows as well.
I would say complement. I don't see it replacing CAD tools. I mean, I see it replacing maybe the service, the kind of service we provide, but not the CAD tools as a support to translation.
I think it will probably seriously modify the user experience, right? Because we're working in the one-to-one translation unit space, and suddenly we're in the generation, right? Copy pre-creation. So does the CAD tool as we know it address it? And probably not. And that's something we're already thinking about seriously at SmartLink. How do you tackle all the new content scenarios within? Can you even do it within what exists? It's similar to what the question was, CAD tool and transcreation, right? Just
yeah, and I also think the chat or the CAD tool is probably getting it's a pretty broad explanation. So if it is if you put the old school editor with the by column, I think that will at some point. I mean, I think for instance, SmartLink has done a great job with having I think you were one of the first to have the in context. I very much believe that we are moving towards generating, translating everything in context, because here you get a way better quality output in the end, because you have the whole context of the content also. Is it a button, and what is next to the button? What is the pictures? What is the whole storyline of whatever you are translating or creating content for, in that sense?
Yeah, there's another question here, quite interesting from Mohammed. Will ChatGPT will be able to change the normal translation or traditional cycle, or will it be having any added value more than MTBE?
I mean, from my point of view, I think that might be replaced.
Because
wow. Yeah, because either you do MTPE or you create the content from the ground up. And again, this is not you cannot just take in any use case, but I guess in some use cases, if you're doing a LinkedIn post in several languages, I guess that why not generate the content for several languages and modify it, then generate it, translate it, and back again.
That's related to another very interesting question from Serenella. What's the risk from a content creativity point of view? Because if we're both using ChatGPT, is there not a risk that we will write similar content, or different companies will write similar content?
I have not tested it enough. Sorry, Frederick. What I saw is when I gave the same prompt over and over again, it will generate different content. So I don't see that risk. I mean, it's much more creative than a human can be with the same input. Is what I experienced.
I really much believe that is where the human superpower comes in, because I don't believe that this will replace anything, humans. I think that this will basically create a better foundation to optimize your content even more towards your audience, because you have removed kind of like a lot of the, I mean, I think a lot of copywriters have sitting, with the blank piece of paper and trying to get started on a blog post or whatever. Here you get kind of like some kind of structure, you get some, some information that you could use or not use. And I think that is where it really comes to play.
If I may add to this, I think I was talking to a colleague of mine and she came up with this great concept. I was talking about prompt engineering as the way to retain creativity. And she said, no, it's not prompt engineering. It's actually new job of content engineer. So it's not content creation, it's not content translation, it's actual content engineering. And I think this is where we're going, right? Engineering the content for cultural relevance. Fluency will be addressed for us. But how to engineer the content lifecycle to be most culturally relevant and actually also inclusive. Because with that, now you can actually tailor it to areas, geos, groups that you could not tailor before with more generalist approaches. So,
In fact, there is a question here about cultural adaptation using ChatGPT. Do you feel it's good? Concepts can be transferred, or does ChatGPT do a good job transferring concepts from one language to another? Somebody's mentioning the Squid Game, for example.
I mean, indeed, it has been trained on, I mean, content, for instance, Spanish content. So it's not, you know, at least that's from my side. I don't know if you disagree, but I think that there is I think you will be way more localized with creating the content from scratch in the Spanish market, for instance, than translating it with machine translation.
If I may comment briefly, what I've observed is it does, because the data is predominantly English, it does great linguistically, but it does not do that great with cultural phenomena. So you can get great output, but cultural, like it insists, for instance, to me that a Russian song was written by a band it was not written by, and there is nothing I can do about it. So to Frederick, to your point, depending on the data it was trained on.
Yeah, and also I'm really excited to see GPT-4, where it have been trained on way more, and hopefully it will succeed on this point here. But let's see.
Okay, some more questions about use of language.
2 minutes remaining, and you have a few questions with more than 20 votes in the chat.
I know I have tons of questions to choose from. One from Joanna. Considering the knowledge cut date from ChatGPT, how do we deal with potential misleading information that changed in recent years, months? If ChatGPT is to be used as a paid service, should we expect its dataset to be updated more regularly?
Well, yes, I think so. We should expect that. Absolutely. Yeah. But fact checking is key, right? I mean, I wouldn't trust to start with.
And yeah, but back to human in the loop, right? Fact checking being one of the roles, one of the new roles.
Yeah, I've heard about the paid service as well. We have a question here from Constantine Drach, no less. What are the top 5 ways translators and small businesses can make business around ChatGPT? Not on top, but around.
Well, adding copywriting to the stack of services that we offer, that would be my first. This is what we're doing.
Okay, from Stephen, so far the only use case I'm hearing about is content creation. Translators don't create content as much as we transform it. Okay, to the point, Olga. But how can we use ChatGPT to transform content instead of creating it?
I think it's all about our idea of quality. If we don't expect one-to-one translation, but we're comfortable with transposing source concepts to the target, I think that's where ChatGPT would come to play. Probably still with a bit of fact checking until the models are updated.
How about adding an additional layer of proofreading done by ChatGPT when we talk about transcreation and we want to to be more creative in the output?
Yeah, I also think it could also come up with suggestions to other phrasings and similar things and QA and the gender issues that we have with MT, doing some post processes there with OpenAI or ChatGPT. I think that there is a million ways that you can kind of like pull in the dots.
Yeah, I believe Domenico was also commenting that he uses it for glossary checking as well.
Yeah,
I think.
And building glossaries. And it's actually really good also for if you want to do SEO terms. You can actually write about giving you the most search and stuff like this. So it's really good at creating foundation in this matter.
Fred, a question for you. How do you ensure that independently generated contents for different languages will be the same?
Yeah, I also saw that question actually, and I'm not 100% sure I understand correctly, but now I'll just try to answer. I guess that is probably the point, is that it shouldn't be the same. I mean, so I think that what you probably would like to achieve is that you would like to write something about something specific topic or whatever, and you want it tailored to your market and to your audience in this market, and then being more flexible on the creativity. If you want to have, a one-to-one of your English text in German, for instance, then I would go with translation, of course.
Okay, Diego, one question for you. Do you think freelance translators, or Olga as well, will disappear as a consequence of using large language models from Ariel Baldo?
It's again yet another technology to help freelance translators and to help our industry. I don't think they're going to disappear. Absolutely.
Yeah, question from Stephen Holmes. Good. When do the panel feel it would be cost effective to generate custom large language models for commercial gain? Obviously, building a model, or if the cost is $1.5 million, 12 million, is not going to be within the reach of many LSPs.
My answer would be, do you feel like competing with OpenAI, Google, Meta? Or will you use whatever is out there and build it into your workflows?
And
so that is at least, yeah.
And back to customization, right? If something has already been created, much rather focus on what you can do to customize it, right? And to tune it to your particular needs rather than try to recreate it from scratch. And train it from scratch.
Manuel, we unfortunately need to wrap up in the interest of time. If you'd like to recap maybe or summarize the most important takeaway from your panel.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, we could only cover so many questions. There are tons. I think there's still about 50 questions open. We could be here until midnight and still be discussing the possibilities. My takeaways from the panel and from Marco's keynote is that the game has changed. Initially, the game has changed in the way we search. I like his point about traffic being diverted from search engines into more private dialogues with ChatGPT or with a large language model, not AI, not a general AI. From the panel, I take the fact that ChatGPT is a great tool for marketing that is already being savvy companies already applying it, that it can transform the way content is delivered or get the content workflow. So the way we gather content from our clients and the way we deliver it, with or with machine translation being included as part of the offering from ChatGPT. It could be a different machine translation. I don't think the freelance work for linguists will disappear. It's going to change. There will be some adaptation there. And I think I would leave it there. I don't know whether you have any more to add, Olga, Fred, Diego?
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, exactly.
Exciting.
It was great. Questions was amazing. We should do a follow-up, Kostya.
You can count on this. Thank you very much. Now we're going to switch to the next topic on the agenda. And before we jump into the research panel, which talks about creating the next European large language model, I would like the technical moderators to run a poll. We're still 750 people in this room. Let's see who is on. Let's see what you are doing with ChatGPT. So the first poll is your profile. Are you a translator, a language services company, a technology company? Are you coming from the buy side, or maybe you're an investor? Please let us know. And I will give the audience about 30-40 seconds to vote on this. Then we'll move to the second question. For myself, I think the important questions to address in this previous vendor panels were what we can do with ChatGPT, right? many things that we cannot do because of the privacy, because of the established workflows, but things are changing, and it's important to focus on the things that are available to us. Chat, how are you feeling? Are you feeling energized? Do you need a break for 1 minute? Let us know. In the meanwhile, let us bring up the results of the poll if the technical moderators are ready. Paolo, Gonzalo, what do we have here? Let's see the results if we're ready. Thank you, Vojta. It's good to see that everything's good. Paolo, Gonzalo, we'd like to see the results of the poll. Whoops, the poll has disappeared, but the results have not appeared. All right, I will give you the chance to show the results later on. In the meanwhile, voila, excellent, excellent. So let's have a look. We have almost 500 people who have voted. We have a majority of vendor-side population, but also 100 buy-side professionals. 0 investors in the room. All right. And some people from research and other. And if you have tried ChatGPT already, we can see that almost 30% of the people have not tried ChatGPT. What are you doing here? Stop everything and go and try it out before you continue with the next talk. I don't know. And out of those who have tried, only a small percentage have found a way how to test it for a business need, not for just playing around and asking it questions about the meaning of life or having it compose the song in your honor. So a lot is in the hype, and very few people are actually doing something very practical. Well, this is a refreshing piece of information to know. We can see that the panelists are further ahead than anyone else in the curve. And this is good. Then these are the right people to listen to. Let us proceed with the research panel. And I would like to welcome on stage Gemma Ramirez Sanchez, Ariane, Johan, and Nicholas. Let's see if the moderators can bring up everyone on the gallery view so that we can all enjoy your lovely faces. We will begin with introductions, and Johan, why don't you be the bravest person in the room and tell us a little bit about yourself. We only know you as the creator of Trados, the most popular translation tool in the world only. What else do you do?
Yeah, Jochen, I'm CEO of Corion and his team. I'm very thrilled to be here in that context today, because quite some data which is required to make AI work is a product of content creation and content translation. So my company Corion, for example, we bring knowledge and terminology management together in one repository, and these multilingual knowledge graphs are great medicine against AI hallucination. I'm also very pleased about the huge number of registration. I mean, this is incredible. But it makes a lot of sense, because the roles of linguists and knowledge workers in our industry will dramatically change with this technology. I think we won't work in translation and documentation departments anymore, or for LSPs doing words, but rather in something which I call language operations, LangOps, creating the knowledge and curating the content which is needed to enable multilingual AI like ChatGPT and all the great products still to come.
Excellent, thank you. Ariane, you are an expert with the European Commission on Language Technology, and you're one of the most influential women in language technology, I think, in Europe, maybe globally. What is your profile in 1 minute?
Okay, thanks, Konstantin. Well, I come from research. So I did my PhD on speech recognition and on natural language analysis and understanding. And I've joined the industry after that. So I'm in the industry for 25 years now. Sorry for the sound here in the Parisian streets. I've been working at companies like Nuance and others. Busy with developing applications for contact centers and customer relationship services. And so at the moment, I'm in charge of the AI and innovation at Via Dialogue, and we're boosting the customer relationship management with a lot of AI about, analyzing the dialogues, automating part of it, analyzing also human-human conversations in contact centers. And so it's a big boost now with all the recent AI development both in speech transcription and natural language processing, especially with these large language models. And yeah, it is changing a lot of things, and we'll be talking about it. And I would like to bring also the industrial point of view of what are the impacts on sovereignty, on deployments, and what the vision we have about that.
Awesome. I see many hearts in the chat. People probably love your French accent. Now from the
I can make it worse if you like it. No problem.
Or use AI to enhance it. From gloomy Paris to sunny Alicante, Hema, you are actually now working on a European project to build the next large language model, you and Nicholas. So maybe in 1 minute, if you could summarize your profile. You are Hema, and a gem, an undiscovered gem in our industry. It's time to shine. It's like the Aladdin going into the Cave of Wonders.
Thank you, Konstantin. You're a charm. And I apparently don't look good on a green background. Sorry about that. So indeed, hello, everyone. I'm a trained translator. My parents paid my educations because they wanted to communicate to everyone sitting every Sunday around a paella. My parents were inviting foreign people for my whole life. So that's why I entered this world. I'm a self-made computational linguist, I can say, but in the end of the day, I do nothing of this. I run a company called PromptSit. It's not about prompting. The spelling is a little bit different. What we have been doing for the last 17 years is providing machine translation services with this view. So we are a spin-off from a research group in Alicante, and we try to turn the hypes into hopes. So I have my clients saying, how can I implement machine translation in my company? And how can I implement ChatGPT in my company nowadays to do translations? And between the hopes and the hypotheses from the research, my research peers that want to advance and to see what this technology can do better today from this point, this departing point. We are usually part of European projects. High performance language technologies, HPLT is one of them. We want to make machine translation, still machine translation, and large language models efficient, sustainable, and at scale. We need data, big amounts of data.
We will talk about it in
many other things that we will talk about later on.
Excellent. And Nicholas, I know you're not from the language and localization, not from localization and translation industry, but we're very, very lucky to have you today because you are the man of the hour. You're building the largest or most prominent European project to have an answer to ChatGPT. So very excited that you agreed to join us, and it's a huge stroke of luck for us. Tell us a few things about yourself.
Thank you, Konstantin, and thank you for everyone who's listening. I'm very happy and honored that I can participate here. I'm the project manager of OpenGPTX. We're actually training a large language model, but I wish there would be so many more projects like these. We find out the application scenarios, they are very, very wide, and and we have a very diverse landscapes of applications in Europe. So I really wish there would be many Nicos and Nicolettes and whatever. And yeah, so yeah, that's me. I work for Fraunhofer IIS, and I'm also a team lead for conversational AI and document analytics, and I'm happy also to.
Thank you for joining us. I have a premonition that Volkswagen GPT, Air France GPT, IKEA GPT, and every other European GPT has a chance to stem from your project in the next 3-4 years. So it's a great beginning here. Now, we had the introductions and we proceed to the opening statements. The first opening statement comes from Jochen. Jochen, tell us in a very simple way why Europe must not and cannot ignore this challenge of large language models being made in the United States. What is it for us? Why should we be excited about this? Why should we cough up money about it, the taxpayer money or otherwise? Why do we need large language models built here after all?
Well, thank you for the intro. Well, ChatGPT has created quite some wave. I mean, we have almost 700 now people here. So it has created quite a wave, and it has done the same what Google Translate actually did. It was popularizing a very complex expert technology. Suddenly millions of people can play with it and understand what we are facing. And I think what we are facing is nothing less than an industrial revolution. I don't know what you do, but I spend quite some time of my working hours with researching, reading, studying things, and then summarizing them, writing text. And I guess that's also true for you. And now you have an AI which does this for you. And the state of the art is, I don't know how much you have played with ChatGPT, but it's doing this on a kind of a junior expert level. So somebody who has 2 or 3 years of experience in a certain field. And except of my areas of domain, it's already beating me in almost everything. So similar to what we are facing now, web search was also a game changer. And what we have allowed to happen in web search, Google search or the others, is that this is monopolized by a few private companies. And Google, for example, knows exactly what the world is looking for, which is giving this company an incredible amount of power. But also it gives them a lot of revenue. So 75% of all online ad revenue just goes to 4 big IT companies. So these are global platforms. And platforms which enjoy valuations in trillions and not in billions like the other companies. And mind you, search is rather simple. It's keyword driven, but the reader then has to make sense out of the content and the articles the search is giving back. It's also already multilingual. So if I search for a German term, I quite likely will find German articles. Now imagine the same would happen with ChatGPT or similar APIs. You interact with the AI and you're not only searching for some keywords, you're talking to the AI, you're engaging in a dialogue, and it is reading for you. So you provide way more information about yourself, about your topics, about things you're interested in, about your needs than you have provided to Google before with simply giving some keywords. So can we leave this power to a few private companies? I would say no way. Already search was way too much, but leaving this, the power of a conversational AI to a few companies, I think is just prohibitive. And why do we get these monopolies? How were these monopolies created? Well, it's a platform, and platform enjoy network effects. This means the more people are working on a platform, the better the platform works. And that eventually results in a winner takes it all game. In the end, with network effects, they're like Facebook with social media or Google with search. There's one big left and then maybe a few others in protected markets. It's also the cost of scaling. If you want to attack Google in its game, the amount of money you would need to get in there is just cost prohibitive, even for a company like Microsoft. So all this is even worse with foundation models. So therefore, I believe that these models should be treated like an infrastructure, a public infrastructure. So GPTs, conversational AIs, they are some sort of the new autobahns. They are an infrastructure, And if they are only provided by a few US and Chinese companies, the rest of the world will completely lose their digital sovereignty. And they have lost it almost already, but now we're talking about even the next big step. Another problem is, of course, that these models are primarily trained with US content. And although these systems are able to translate, so they can give back, at least for the bigger languages in a fairly good quality, the results back in German, French, Spanish, but less with smaller companies. But the content which is coming back, the way or it's based its information on, is culturally US content. So, of course, again, it will be less relevant or sometimes even disturbing or not even productive for you if you are then just getting the translation of conversational AI, which has been trained primarily with US content. But there are many more issues. We have data protection issues. As I said, I mean, already giving keywords is giving Google a lot of information. Now imagine you are engaging in a dialogue. So the GDPR issues are there much more burning. And with it, of course, also data security issues. When you start to have and engage with ChatGPT in writing articles or content, then maybe there's a lot of data which you shouldn't really share with such application. There are copyright issues. I mean, the EU has a pretty tough copyright law, which many are not aware of. Actually, commercial machine translation in Europe is somewhat illegal because you're only allowed to use data mining for academic purposes. And even in the US, where they have a much smarter copyright concept of fair use, there are companies already suing because they think that ChatGPT and what it's doing is not covered by fair use anymore. So, and then last but not least, ethics. So the AI will talk to you, the AI will write content, and there are a lot of ethical questions. And ethics are different from nation to nation, from business block to business block. So there are many, many issues if you leave this kind of applications and large language models in the hand of a few larger US or Chinese companies. Also, smaller languages will be left behind, a bit like the Autobahn. I mean, many Autobahns are built into certain areas and it doesn't pay off. Private companies won't do that. So it is somewhat comparable with the public infrastructure. An industrial revolution requires very serious industrial policies. I mean, imagine the time when coal and steel became big. I mean, whole governments, even wars were fight over this. It requires an industrial policy. But I'm not really seeing this happening in the EU. And that was already true before ChatGPT, I would say, because also natural language processing and other areas, we have the problem that smaller languages are at disadvantage. I mean, if you take just simple database search, even today it works well in English, maybe German, French, smaller languages, you get not the same results. And the EU has done very little in this area, in spite of legal requirements. I mean, there are laws in the EU to treat every language the same way, but independent of the laws, just the cost savings the EU would enjoy in its own administration and the efficiency gains would justify investments of hundreds of millions every year to handle multilingual. And I know this pretty well because I used to be chairman of LT Innovate, and I've lobbied a lot for making this topic aware with leading commissioners and responsible people, but to my shame, with very little result. And they always give their Sunday speeches, like they're saying data is the new oil. Yeah? But they don't say that this oil is only drilled for an English soil. And in general, multilingual, although, I mean, Marcus said it before, language is the base of our communication, the base of how we transport knowledge. I don't know whether you know the Danish series Borgen, kind of a Danish version of House of Cards. And their political opponent is humanized by being sent to Brussels as commissioner for multilingual. I mean, it's that bad. So from the EU, I think there's not much hope, but there are national initiatives. And a good month ago, January 24th, there was in Berlin a meeting of an organization or an initiative called LLM, Large European Language Models, which is headed and organized by the German AI Association, where they were launching a feasibility study, how a large AI model for Germany could look like. And there were about 180 people from industry, politics, academia, and they were launching their feasibility study and trying to get the support for the government to invest serious money. And we do need serious money because it's not only about the tech and the data, but also about the infrastructure, the computing infrastructure. So you heard these numbers, how much it's costing to train models. It's expensive, although there's progress, but on the other hand, there's also more data. So I don't know whether we really will see the costs going down as Marco showed it, or forecasted it. But you also need a lot of scale for querying the system. So I've read something like that it costs a couple cents per request to ask ChatGPT, and if it will be complementary, or let's say take a quarter of the Google requests instead will be ChatGPT requests, you can just multiply the numbers by the Google queries, and then by a couple cents, it's a lot of money. And a lot of money is going there. You've surely heard Microsoft putting billions, like 10 billion in chat, in OpenAI. So scale is a huge, huge issue. So I hope that this gets funded by the German government, that the feasibility study will result in real actions, and eventually then also by the EU and by its member states. And the question is, what should be the ambition? I mean, should Europe try to have also an OpenAI or ChatGPT, like a Me Too product? Well, I think we should do much more because there's still many problems with AI. One problem is you cannot really trust ChatGPT. I mentioned before, it's hallucinating. It tells you a lot of stuff which is simply not true. And for commercial enterprise use, you need trusted AI. Many people in this LLM meeting in Berlin said, we need AI we can trust. And then, of course, we need to customize the AI. So people want to customize the content, and not necessarily by putting it out and sharing the content, but by customizing with content which you have behind the firewall, content which you want to keep inside of the company, but still you want to customize it. And then
we'll go into these details, I think, in the questions, Jochen. Let's, if you'd like to move on, or do you have?
Okay, I'm almost done.
I see Anne-Marie was already saying she can listen for you for hours, and the audience is loving you.
Okay, well, that's
stream
nice.
of likes
Well,
is endless. But
maybe flashing,
let's
but
give ladies some space.
I'm almost done. So, and then you have the human in the loop, which I think for our LSP audience is key, right? So I believe the ambition should be not just to catch up, but to try at least to lead, because then Nico's powerful vision, Nico, who's also on our panel, I really loved his line about that you will be able eventually with ChatGPT to talk with your data. And that's a great vision to become true.
Awesome. Well, I think we're all energized by your opening statement. Ariane, so the war is on of AI superpowers. Who are the players? What are the pieces in the game? What should Europe do to have their favorite knight or horse at the lead of the race?
Exactly. We'll be moving from policy to geopolitics. so maybe to illustrate a bit more about this, I can try to share some diagram I draw. Share screen. Okay. Wait, where is it?
Sorry, Jochen, that I interrupted you. I really
no problem. I
think we should have a follow-up session just with you.
Okay, let's see if it works.
At least one person will join. There's a
I need to do some.
Can the technical team please help Ariane with sharing the screen? In the meanwhile, maybe we can begin. An awkward pause. Who doesn't like an awkward pause in a panel?
Let's see if I can share now.
If not, I'll help you.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. I don't think Zoom is allowing me to share.
I will share in a second. Please begin, and I will share your slide.
Okay, so yeah, typically we're now entered in an era of so-called foundation models. We also call them large language models, because most of them are indeed have something to do with language, even if they're like generating images like DALL-E or Stable Diffusion, but they're related to language. They've been trained on language. And so, yeah, exactly, that's a slide. So these large language models, as been said, are huge, and they cost a lot to train, and they need a lot of data to be trained. Okay, so this is changing the whole ecosystem. Okay, so it's changing the ecosystem for the industry, but also for research. What's happening now is that you have just a few guys that are big enough, that have enough money to build these foundation models. So it started with BERT back in 2018 or 19, and then it moved on to larger models like T5, GPT-3, of course, on which ChatGPT is based. But you also have Wave2Vec, DALL-E, and others, and it's not finished. I mean, the list is just becoming longer, but it's only provided or trained by a few players. Typically, Google, Meta, Facebook, OpenAI, so backed by Azure, Microsoft, who've put a lot of money on it, and which also is backing OpenAI with their huge farms of GPUs. Okay, and now foundation models are setting the new state of the art. So what's happening? Well, a simple scenario is that you have on the other side of the diagram startups and cloud companies that are starting using these huge models and using them for their need. And what they do is that they're fine-tuning the models. So now we have two ways of really using the models. Either you do a real fine-tuning, okay, so you add training or transfer learning on top of the foundation models with your own data, okay, and so you fine-tune the model on your data, on your task. Or you're doing some prompt engineering or content engineering, as been mentioned.
That's what everyone can do.
Yeah, everyone can do that. But of course, the price to pay is that you have to share your data. Okay, so maybe it's sensitive data, maybe it's confidential data, maybe it's GDPR written data.
I knew that it would be a catch.
Yeah, exactly. And there's something else also, the fact that the models, if you want to have access to the models and if you want to fine-tune these models, you now have mainly to go to some platforms. And there's also just a few platforms that are actually equipped with the ability to offer you access to these models and to let you do the fine-tuning. Typically, Hugging Face is now becoming a very important platform for that. So the good thing about Hugging Face is that they're sharing a lot of things. They're allowing people to share a lot of things, a lot of models, and it started to be like the one-stop shop for downloading open source models, which is very good. But it's not. It's just a start. What Hugging Face is really about now is, and how they plan to make money, to make revenue, is to provide you with all the tools that allow you on their platform to do your fine-tuning, and also that allow you to deploy the models, because deploying those models, having them run in production, is not an easy task. And so Hugging Face has worked very hard on it. OVH, so the European French cloud provider, has also been working quite hard on it, but a large part of OVH AI team, French AI team, has been actually hired by Hugging Face, which was funded by French guys as well, but which is a US startup, really. So it was a big blow for them, but they've not renounced on it. So you have a few platforms who are trying to give you access to the models, who are trying to give you the equipment, but you'll still have to pay the price and share the data with those platforms. And then you have, what are the alternatives? So one kind of alternative, and I think that Nicolas and Gemma will talk about it, is the researchers' initiatives, organization initiatives, government initiatives, which try to build their own models and make them totally open and transparent, like Bloom, which is a GPT-3-like model, although not as powerful or not as effective, but it's the same kind of model. And it's been trained on the French Jean Zay supercomputer, which has 100 or I think thousands of A100 NVIDIA GPU. So it's really great to have access to that kind of computing power, and it allowed to train this Bloom model. So that's the big science project. And then you have OpenGPT-X that Nicolas and Gemma will be talking about, I guess. So that's one of the alternatives, but then it doesn't solve the problem of how do you deploy that. Okay, so other alternatives are alternatives that are coming from expert players, so like my company, Viadalog, but we're not the only ones, of course. So companies that are pure players and who are interested to master these models and being able to deploy them on their own private cloud or on their on-prem. Same thing for large companies, very large companies who are very fond on having everything on-prem, like large banks, insurers, etc., telcos. So those guys also are looking at how they can deploy things on their premises. And then there's another, it's not drawn here in this diagram, but there's also another war going on how do you deploy those models. And there are interesting initiatives like the ones from Microsoft and from NVIDIA, who are actually sharing standards, who are sharing frameworks for how to compress models, how to run the inference on the models, how to schedule these large model inference, etc. It's very interesting. For instance, what NVIDIA and Microsoft are doing in this area. They're not the only ones, but it's also very interesting to see how they're kind of they're working together, but they're also tackling together. So it's pretty interesting to see which version is compatible with which one. Okay, so that's also something going on. And I think as of now, it's very interesting. It's very important if we want to keep some sovereignty in Europe, to be on the game. So to master these frameworks, to understand how they work, to also support alternative frameworks if other emerge, and be able to offer safe harbor where the data can reside and is not forced to go to US clouds. And when you're using these models, you should always ask yourself these questions: what data you're using, what model you're using, where do you train, where do you adapt the model, where do you deploy, why are you inheriting by using this model? Okay, what foundation models everything is being based on, etc. So that's the global ecosystem I wanted to share.
So if I understand correctly, the French talent and brains got drained to a United States startup, and OpenGPT-X is our only hope, our Obi-Wan Kenobi.
So not exactly.
Not exactly. So the situation
there are other initiatives that are being launched actually at the moment. So in France, we have an AI coordinator that reports to Prime Minister, and so he's now launching new initiatives. So we'll see what comes out of it. But I think all the main, I think all the European countries are pretty much aware that there's something going on here, and that if you want to play or to have some part in this geopolitics, in this game, you have to take position right now.
Perfect. Thank you, Ariane. From this place of global competition and building our technological autobahns, let's get down to the builders. Hema, you're up. Tell us a little bit about what will it take. Maybe describe your project in a short way, and what will it take to make it bigger and more and have more uptake and more penetration into the industry.
Maybe we can stop the sharing, right?
Yes, I forgot. Oh, now I can use my screen. Hema, you're on mute.
Yeah, typical me.
From France to Spain, let's go.
Yeah, okay. Almost a couple of years ago, we wrote a project, we submitted it, and we got it funded by the European Union. It is called High Performance Language Technologies. What is the ambition? We are trying to make this infrastructure, part of this infrastructure that Johan was talking about, available to everyone. To speak first, we have high performance computing centers in Europe, all around Europe, and they are very good at sequencing DNA, but they are not NLP aware. We want to solve this problem. This is the first problem we want to solve. Even before being able to train our models, we need to get there. And we have those supercomputing centers available. Let's make good use of them. Then another ambition, we are aiming at deriving 100 monolingual and bilingual data sets. So bilingual will multiply those 100 by 99 for 12 petabytes of data from the Internet Archive and from Common Crawl. We want to highly curate this data to make it available, to share it with everyone that can use it and or want to use it in an open way. So from the open source licenses applied to data that can be shared. For that, we need to filter, anonymize, and do whatever we need, but the data needs to be there and for 100 languages, not only English, not only the top 13 languages, we are aiming at 100. This poses a challenge because those large language models, just to give you an example, my colleagues at the University of Turku that just released a GPT-4 Finnish last week, they were saying with less than 100 billion tokens, there's not much we can do with large language modeling training. So this is the ambition. We need to get as much open data. We need to get HPC centers, NLP aware. And from all of these, we are aiming at building models, sustainable and efficient. We are going in the opposite way that you have been hearing, like adding more and more and making this bigger and bigger and bigger. We want to take care about the languages and build models that represent the languages and respect the languages and do not suffer from what we call in research from the multilinguality curse, because you add one more model and your per model performance drops. So we finally don't want this to be like that as a European response to what is going on. We are the concentrating power, and we are going to make all those models open source for opening opportunities, not only for research, but also for companies like mine. I want to be able to operate these models. I want to be able to fine tune. I want to be able to know exactly what it's in. Only from the open source licenses for data and models, we can do that, and we can keep going on. So this is the ambition of the HPLT project. It's then it's here for 3 years. You may think from Marco's talk that this is too long time, and I was scared, like saying, "Oh wow! So is it even worth if there's something being cooked by Elon Musk right now to pay attention to this?" Yes, this is not going so fast. Machine translation models still have a lot to say. Large language models just started, and we are just seeing a little bit of what their power. But we already have been here, and we have seen that with machine translation, there was not such a long way, but we needed some time to be able to see what could we do with client data. We need to see that, to explore that also. We need to see how do we integrate this without our costs being exploding every week. We need this to work on real time. I don't want to wait for 5 seconds to get a translation. Come on, we are having same quality or higher quality from direct models right now for a fraction of the time of the cost. So let's be a little bit not conservative. We are seeing the whole potential, but hey, let's calm down because there's a lot of work ahead.
So what can the people here do? Is there something that the language industry can contribute to this kind of project?
Of course. Evaluation is one of the keys. Then what do we need from these big models to be working on the workflows and environments? We were actually talking, so in the previous panel, they were talking about killing cat tools. We need to be aware of what this means for the industry. So the wish list is to be done, and contribution. So who's going to evaluate per language model is the language industry. Who's going to evaluate for biases? Who's going to evaluate for cultural adaptation? Who's going to evaluate, I don't know, for so many things? Of course, we need to act as a community.
And I understand that you say that the Finns have built, there's the Swedish GPT, there's the Finnish GPT, but the requirement is that they didn't find enough data in the country. And so they will turn to your project that salvages data from the Internet Archive.
This and convincing for once European administrations that we need to access their invaluable data that they have hidden in their local repositories at once, and make use of them to train the models. If we cannot open this data, that's fine, but at least if this has been paid by public money, let's make good use of it to make
Take that, European
models.
Commission.
Yes.
Take that.
I don't want to take more of your time. I want to hear what Nico has to say. And we
would love to hear more from you, but first, a complete round of all the panelists.
Yes.
Thank you. I am sure everyone in the chat just loved your delivery and the ideas. Taking the data from the big guys and distributing it to everyone, including the Chinese and the Americans, it's great. Nicholas, tell us, what is OpenGPTX? How can we use it? When is it coming out? Are you going to save us from the attack of the clones, or I mean the foreign models?
Yeah, as I said, I wish we now act really, really fast in Europe. And when I hear this, and when I hear what the previous speakers have meant, there's not much to add from my side, really. Let's do it, rattle on the desks of the administration from the EU and get things started. I fully agree. There's compute power flying around. There is texts, high quality texts flying around. And if we don't get to them to marriage or like a cooking recipe, if we don't get it together, we will not have this kinds of models. And so if anyone here listens and has access to large amounts of text, and I think the fun starts with like a few, depending on the quality of text, but yeah, few billion tokens upwards, few dozen billion of tokens upwards. Really, we should do it. We cannot miss the chance. The previous talk has outlined it so well. If international corporations they are on this, and they have a good reason to be on it, because it's about also technological supremacy on their side, and we have a lot of languages, and language for me is also culture. We have a lot of things to preserve. With regards to the question of the project, yes, we will be heading in 3-digit numbers in this year with regards to the model size. But as has been outlined before, is also we need good texts for this, and we are exploring multilingual models already. But I think we will just start doing this, and and I think also what we really need is more filtering of crawled data, because that's the biggest resource as the models scale up. And why is scaling up so important? There has been a lot of talks about smaller sized models like Chinchilla or UL2, which are like 20 billion or 70 billion parameters. They are fine, they are doing really, really well, but there's also a very interesting paper that some qualities emerge only from a certain size onwards, only from a certain amount of text onwards. And yeah, so I wish that now a lot of projects will start soon. Better yesterday than tomorrow. That's all I can
Nicholas,
say.
what does open stand for in OpenGPTX?
Open? Sorry, I did. Sorry.
How does what does open stand for in OpenGPTX?
Oh, we will publish the model public. It's open source. We will publish the models.
So anyone can download your model and fine tune it, adapt it, however they would wish.
Yes.
If they have $1 million for
that's still allowed after EU AI Act, we will do it. If I go to jail, probably I won't. But
we don't want you to go to jail.
No, I don't. It's yeah. So now that's the plan. Yes.
So you're trading the German model for multiple languages, right? And it's going to be open source. And this is cooking up right now. You need the data, the processing power, better techniques, but you are leading this project to create the models. How can industry agents collaborate with you, for example?
We have the project is a publicly funded project by the German Ministry of Economics, and as of such, it's a very use case driven models project. So the models are currently employed in 3 domains, and one is the domain of mobility, where we collaborate with BMW, and the other domain is the insurance domain, where like a company that makes AI for large insurances are using the models. And the other one is a public use case where a broadcaster, WDR, uses the model to do various NLP tasks as well. And the results so far in these use cases have been really, really well. But we have been talking a lot about the foundations now, and we have to also really invest a lot of brain power, money in use cases and business scenarios. I think Jochen has already outlined it, and we cannot expect this to run from our uni servers anymore. So we also need to empower compute centers, maybe commercial ones that really will host these models and all of that. So we are now experiencing all the interesting topics and challenges that in the future, someone who will actually employ the model and use it might also experience. Hopefully not, but yeah. So we are focusing on specific tasks such as conversational AI, and we are focusing also on document analytics, and also more simple language is also very. It's not basically it's similar to translation. I don't know the English word is properly used here, but it's basically having a complex text and not everyone may be able to understand it, and it translates it to simple German.
The audience is probably well familiar with controlled languages. Thank you for your opening statement. Now we have made a round. I would like to invite the audience to pose questions and to vote on them. And while ladies and gentlemen in the chat are supporting you with food for thought and making their queries, let me ask you a simple but complex first question. So, ideal case scenario for Europe. In 2 or 3 years, what should we see? I mean, money is being disbursed at the end of the month. Europe is awarding, I don't know, 200 million in grants to language technologies. It's probably a pittance compared to what ChatGPT is eating up every day and every month. But it's still something, and I'm sure more is to come now that language is in the spotlight. What is our ultimate goal in as short a sentence as possible? Nicholas, maybe we start with you, and we go around and we ask this. Everyone gives the one sentence response to that.
Sorry, I didn't hear the last sentence.
So, what is the ideal case scenario for Europe? Where should we go? What's our goal? Is it a European organization like ChatGPT, supported by the government, but being a commercial company or open source? Is it a myriad of small organizations, everyone training their own transformer? Is it an academic model? Is it a model like e-translation, something done by the European Commission to support all the European institutions? Is there a particular outcome that you favor?
We have to, in this specific case, I don't see a lot. I see it somewhere in the middle. Just like one big corporation might be too big to even start walking. A lot of small organizations might not be able to have the proper power, because at the end of the day, training these models is very expensive money-wise. Also, we have to think about the environment, and we have to really have it end to end. So research and product has to move together in, I would say, fairly medium-sized organization. I think LEAM, which Jochen mentioned earlier on, it could be one of those endeavors, and maybe those 5, 6, or 7 of those even could be good for Europe. Maybe with specific. One is maybe more organized into proteins for biochemical blah blah blah. So this is what I envision it. You don't make them too small, don't make them too big. Bring research and application as close to each other as possible.
The marriage of academia and the industry. Perfect. Jochen, what do you think of our end goal? You're muted. Herr Marian, you're also muted, so be
we
careful.
shouldn't pull money with a watering can. That won't show any effect. The European Union has tried this for decades, so there need to be a serious investment. I'm not talking millions, but billions into infrastructure. And then there should be a huge fund which enables companies to raise money. So not funding and grants, but rather access to capital, so that then many smaller companies can build on top of this infrastructure, on top of the resources, and don't get money as a gift from the government, but as an investment, because that has a great leverage and multiplier. And with the money, because there is enough money in the horizon, there would be more than enough to set up such industry.
So let 1,000 flowers bloom. That's a cool visualization. Ariane, what's your view?
Well, I think we have to envision it in two ways. That is, the advent of what's the advent of foundation models changed is that it kind of decorrelates, on the one hand, people or organizations that build the foundation models, and on the other hand, groups and companies who are building the real life applications, the laser focused applications. I think I saw that for their domain, for real life needs of their customers, etc. So be it very specific cases of applications of conversational AI, very specific cases for content management, whatever. So these two things now, these two worlds can have a slight decorrelation, very slight, because of course you need this cooperation between academia and companies to really tackle those models and make them efficient on your applications. But the thing is that you can have a two ways answer. On the foundation model side, we just need alternatives. And it's okay if we just have 1 or 2, 3 alternatives. That's good. That's good. Just having one would be nice. Okay, not having just one US
competitive alternatives, right?
Exactly, competitive alternatives, and from different countries, not all from the US or from China. Okay, so but one alternative, even if there's like one alternative large language model in Germany, one alternative large language model for French or for multilingual or for so that would be good, and that would be enough. And then on the side of business. Well, let's, like you said, 1,000 flowers bloom.
Flowers bloom.
It's okay. It's okay to have a very active and with I mean framework, a very active ecosystem with a lot of companies, etc. And the nice thing would be for startups to stop this reflex of just relying on the big
ChatGPT,
yes. Clouds, just it's so easy. Yeah, you can build your product in days if you just rely on Azure Cognitive Services or on Google Cloud or now on OpenAI Cloud, which is really Microsoft's one. So that would be nice also to see startups starting to like rely on other kind of models. And regarding the companies that are like SMEs or mid-size firms who have a lot of experience and have a lot of data. Of course, that's very important to see how they will position it. And I think those are the companies that are key in promoting alternative models and not relying directly on the big clouds.
Awesome. I think this competitive alternatives is an easy tagline or a slogan for the European Union. Hema, what's your point of view? I have a suspicion that you're going to speak about ecosystem.
I'm going to speak about democratization. Democratization.
Even better.
Yes. Of knowledge on how to build these super large language models. Democratization and accessing them, making them more efficient. Tinier models may work better than those super big models, make them truly multilingual. We are a truly multilingual community. European scientists can do very nice ground models that can then be distilled and that everyone can take and make business around them. Data is also a big thing to democratize. Let's have people have access to data, at least to know that the models we are building are transparent, reproducible, and that if there's something wrong with them, there's something or someone to blame, the data, and be able to build upon this. Let's make the recipes to build these models also. Democratize them. Let's make the HPC centers in Europe be able to run these models or to let people fine-tune them, companies fine-tune them. They're fine if we have to pay, but we want this infrastructure and we don't want to build it one by one. And with that, then everything else will evolve.
You're the Robin Hood. It's terrific. Now I see we have 5 minutes, maybe 4, and not too many questions in the chat. So let's address the important ones in a quick way. And I would start with the elephant in the room, which is GDPR. Can GDPR be an obstacle to model training? Should it be changed in some way to prepare the countries for what's going on? Ariane, I think you're the best expert to address this.
I don't know if I'm the best expert, but I think that GDPR, up to now, has proven to be quite effective. That is, I know that in the industry, we were all very cautious. And when we saw GDPR coming, we said, wow, will it have a bad impact? Will it, be an obstacle on our growth? Will it prevent us from doing good solutions, good technology, progress, etc.? I think that in the end, it didn't really hinder us in the industry from building solutions, etc. And it did really change the game in the competition with US cloud platforms. Now, all the big companies, they have at least to think about GDPR subject and stake. And of course, that's something that will always be in their mind when they're when they turning to the large US offerings. And sometimes they will still, why not, take this offering for some use cases, but they will always have to answer the question, is it GDPR compliant? What about GDPR, etc. So I think it was pretty, it had really a good impact. It made people aware of, okay, what's the data, where is the data going, etc. And even if GDPR it's really basically about private data, personal data, it has I think a role in making people aware of the data movements.
GDPR is good, basically.
Yeah,
GDPR is good. No need to do about it.
Okay.
No need to do anything about it.
One thing we should do about it, a law about digital only makes sense if it comes in the form of an API. Otherwise, it's kind of just paper.
Excellent. 2 remaining questions. So fact checking. How is research community approaching it? There's data being made available, and HEMA is taking the data from the silos and giving it to everyone, like Robin Hood. But are we actually checking if the data has any fact or substance to it? I think, Nicholas, this is a good question for you. You're on mute. Okay.
It's one of the it's one of the most challenging things we are working on, and it's also a very scientific problem. And just to bring this together, and bring it into production fast. That's the biggest challenge. Yeah.
So it's difficult to do. In a nutshell, can we communicate to the wide audience what's being done about it? How do we fact check?
The thing is the model just learns patterns in word sequences and all of that. They don't have like an implicit kind of knowledge. So it's more like so
how do we know the sequence contains a falsehood? How do we know that the data is lying?
Yeah, that will be the fact checking bit. That will be very, very challenging. At the end of the day, if you talk to a human, and if you talk to I had an experience with a lawyer, and it was also not entirely correct what this person was saying. Was 80% correct, but that did the job for me. Yeah. And at the end of the day, what we are doing at Fraunhofer is we are working more on the model side. How can we actually train the models in a way that facts can be included and the model not only changes a sequence of words, but also learns facts, basically. And
I think it's a topic for a separate discussion.
And we hope that with this, in this way, the hallucinations and the factual correctness will go up. Fact checking is really difficult. It ends up on very simple things. Is the moon revolving around the Earth? Probably yes, but then it's then also on a philosophical level, it gets really murky here. But yeah, we will do the side. What we control right now is the model training, and from that perspective we approach it.
I think it's a very exciting area, and if I were to start my career today, I would go into learning and discovering how AI can separate the truth from falsehood. I think everyone who is studying now for AI should consider this as a path of applying themselves in their lives. Last question. Hema, what about the environmental impact? You mentioned green AI. How do you make AI green in a very short way? How do we not burn the forest every time I'm asking GPT to write a song for me? Or a poem about machine translation or something like that.
So making systems that even if you need to making systems that can run on a browser to start with. So already that inference time we need to, because this will touch everyone's budgets, we need to focus on making tinier models, even if we lose a little bit of the quality we could get from them. This is already working for machine translation. So you distill tinier, efficient models from big and solid and robust and high quality models. And at the end of the day, you don't run this anymore. You fine tune and run tinier models and that run on CPU and not on GPU. So this we need to see
distillation,
that
like we distill spirits, we can also distill a model.
Yes, and if we have seen that with 60 billion parameters, we can get similar results than to 175. So we need to go in that direction also.
Perfect.
For the huge models.
I am getting lots of messages from the team that we've run over time. Jochen, you get the final word or a final laugh. What's the takeaway, number one, for the people in the room? What should they do?
Well, what they should do is they should think about the human in the loop model, because what we are hearing is that this technology is imperfect and will probably continue to be imperfect for a very long time. We need to teach it. And one thing we understand in this industry, one thing LSPs understand is how to work with humans in the loop, with many people, different languages distributed all over the globe. And that's a skill and a knowledge which the industry can leverage to develop new business models.
Amazing. Thank you very much. It's been a terrific panel and I enjoyed it thoroughly. I hope you've all learned something and you exchanged contacts and insights, and something will come up from this. As always, events bring people together and ideas get sparkled here. We'll now take a 3-minute break for the moderators and everyone to drink some tea, and we'll come back for the final panel of the day with the buy side. Led by Anastasia Listener. So bear with us, a small break, and in 3-4 minutes we resume. The technical team should be ready with the poll.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
To reach a new audience, you should be aware that the right communication is key and choosing your partner becomes crucial. A project of expansion to international markets requires a long list of tasks and finds an answer in a one-stop destination solution, the only one capable of giving the right answers to the multiple challenges of reaching the desired markets. Save time, gain quality with AP Portugal Tech language solutions and its comprehensive range of high-quality linguistic and technological solutions that will deliver the right message to the right audience in any language. Get in touch. If you want to reach a new audience, you should be aware that the right communication is key and choosing your partner becomes crucial. A project of expansion to international markets requires a long list of tasks and finds an answer in a one-stop destination solution, the only one capable of giving the right answers to the multiple challenges of reaching the desired markets. Save time, gain quality with AP Portugal Tech language solutions and its comprehensive range of high-quality linguistic and technological solutions that will deliver the right message to the right audience in any language.
All right, I think we can resume in the interest of time. I hope everyone could pour themselves another cup of tea, take a deep breath and prepare for the final panel of the day, but not the final event because we have a surprise guest coming. It is now my pleasure to introduce Anastasia Lisina, my colleague at Custom MT, who will lead the panel looking at the insights of the buy side. And Stacey, I can see you're already on the stage. Let's run the poll for the panel while you introduce the panelists.
Perfect. Let me finally steal your spotlight and welcome everybody. It's so nice to see you here today with us. Before I introduce everybody, let me do a very quick technical introduction. So for those of you who are joining us new, if you have any problems, please make sure that you're using the Zoom client or Google Chrome and just log in and out of the session once again, and hopefully that's going to fix it for you. Otherwise, let us know in the chat. Also, we'll love our questions. So I encourage everybody to type their questions into the little chat box and also vote for the questions that you would like to be answered first, because we're going to prioritize them for you. And we're going to try to take as many interesting questions as we possibly can today. Okay, so you found yourself at the bias panel on ChatGPT and the underlying technology. And we have an amazing lineup today of the experts who are going to give you more of an insights of how they've already tried the technology or what they would like to do with it. And we're also going to share all the personal insights and feelings, such as, am I the imposter for trying this new scary, crazy technology that's taking over the world. I hope you're going to enjoy it. Again, very nice to see all of you right here. And let's start with a quick introduction from everybody who you see on the panel today. Bea, I'm going to give the floor to you. Let's start with introductions.
Sure. Thank you, Stacey. I'm Bea Verdasco, and I am currently leading localization efforts at Trendyol, a Turkish e-commerce company, the largest Turkish e-commerce and one of the most valuable private internet companies in the EMEA region. I have been working in localization and the language services industry for over 15 years. And like everyone here, I'm very intrigued and excited by this technology. We've already tried it, and I am ready to share some potential use cases and our experience with language generation at Trendyol.
Thank you so much. Jose, next is you. tell us about what you do and how you're interested in GPT technology.
Thank you. So hello, everyone. I'm Jose. I was actually tempted. I play with this. I was going to just read from a bio created with ChatGPT, but I think I will just like post it on the comments for everyone to enjoy. One of the things that I play with this technology for. So I'm Jose. I work for a software company called Coupa that makes a financial management suite of products. And I've been in localization for more than I care to admit, very long. I've been a translator. I've been on the vendor side for many years, and I am now on the buyer side. And from all the perspectives that I have on the journey, I'm interested in ChatGPT as just like the new disruptive thing to learn about. Yeah, I have plenty of emotions about it, as Konstantin would say.
Beautiful, thank you. Anna, now it's up to you. Please do a little introduction so everybody knows what amazing things you've done and what you're working on.
Yes, hi everybody, great to be here. And I'm Anna Golubeva, representing the IKEA brand. And as you probably know, it is one brand, but many different companies under it. So I'm representing the franchisor area of it in Turkey Systems, based in the Netherlands. And yeah, I've been working with localization or translation for quite some time within IKEA in different kind of constellations or roles or areas. It was sales and marketing, training and e-learning, and also mostly internal communication. So it's, yeah, connected to this new piece of technology. Of course, there are a lot of lively discussions happening everywhere. So I would be happy to share what are our thoughts within the company, but also personally. So very excited to be here and to learn and share.
Beautiful, thank you so much. Well, after the introduction, I think that's a good idea to share the results of our poll right now, because one of the things we're going to be talking about today is how do we structure the use of ChatGPT in our organization? And I'm pleased to see that most of you actually don't have a structure, but you're very interested in testing it. And that's a beautiful place to be at this panel, because that's exactly what we're going to be tackling today. How do we structure it? Should we structure it? Who's responsible? So hopefully we can brainstorm together and you'll get some answers. I'm also very curious about this T% who said that they do have designated experts and production blueprints. So if you could share something in the chat, let us know a little bit more, because honestly, we're curious to learn of how you managed to do this. This is very impressive. Kudos for you if you've actually done that. Yeah, thank you, all the panelists. That's an amazing lineup. Pia, yes, I'm just going to give you 2 minutes. Can you please tell us about the dog on the background? Because I think everybody's going to know. It's a fun fact. And then I promise we'll start with a real conversation.
Yes, of course. I had to use this background, my favorite Zoom background provided by my colleagues at Trendyol. This is Rocky the dog. It's an internal mascot that represents some of the values of the company. When Trendyol started operations in Turkey, it was the smallest e-commerce, and it was sort of competing against really big giants in the space. So they consider themselves the underdog, and they have kept that philosophy of always striving to be bigger and better. And I happen to like dogs. I have 2 dogs of my own, so I think this is really cute, and it's holding the globalization symbol, so it's like perfect for localization.
Thank you. It's a perfect mascot, and I saw so many little heart emoji reactions, so we love it. Thank you.
Nice to see.
Beautiful. Let me give everybody a little bit of structure of what we're doing today. So we're starting the panel. We're going to be discussing our use cases, everything that we think might be interesting for you from the buyer's perspective right now. And we're going to spend about 25 minutes on this. And after that, we'll tackle all the questions that we're going to see in the chat. Again, please vote for the questions that are the most interesting for you, so we're going to answer them first. And yeah, we're going to get into all the juicy bits. And let's begin with our opening statements and our use cases. So Jose, I think that's for you to begin with. Tell us how you've tried ChatGPT, if you've tried it, what use cases do you see, how do you feel about it?
Sorry, who will be starting?
It's your turn. It's your turn.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought I was like talking enough already. So thank you, Stacey. I want to disclose that I joined the event with like the biggest case of like imposter syndrome, in the sense that I feel like I don't know enough to really be like representing a large audience. But throughout the day and reading through the comments, I've been like, getting a stronger feeling that maybe I do have like something to add, because if nothing else, I have like big curiosity about it. So in prepping for this, Konstantin mentioned we were like going through what we have to say, and Konstantin like summarized it really well. Well, Jose has emotions about it. So I would like to talk about like those emotions and why I'm here. So I have like two big emotions about ChatGPT. One of them is excitement. I'm super excited that there's like a new technology that has the potential to like help in many different ways, and that there's like applications to localization as well as like the corporate life and just like every other department. I think that anyone who's writing has the potential of like benefit from ChatGPT. But then the other really strong emotion is I'm worried. I'm worried about how we can like misuse it, how we can like misunderstand it, how it could distract us from like other technologies like MT that we've been like curating and getting better and better. And then now this might come as a new fad and actually get us, out of focus on what is really going to help us. So to try to see through these things, I did a little bit of like practicing over the last, especially the last 3 months at my organization. And we've tried to just see where this fits. And the first place was like me just trying to do stupid things with it. And I'm going just to post one that I did while listening to the others. I'm going to post in the comments, if that's okay, a joke that ChatGPT wrote for us. Hope it's not too long. And please don't read it right now, but just in case you need something created with ChatGPT in today's sessions. That's one thing, that it's a joke about translators and ChatGPT. So hopefully it's relatable. So I started using it for that. And at work, we thought that, well, this is going to be about writing. We tried to use it for technical writing. Our technical writing teams write a lot of content. We have like a very large suite. We have like many millions of documentation at the moment, and the pace at which it continues to grow, it's like very fast. So everybody's like challenged for time. So can this technology help us like write that content? And we got like some mixed results and mixed feelings. Again, feelings and emotions getting in the way as well. So some people didn't even want to try much. They did like a first exercise of trying to write a feature or write some paragraph about a feature, maybe with like some general knowledge about something related to compliance, right? That is that important to financial software. And people were like, oh, this helps. And some of the people, they were like, oh, this doesn't help at all. And I don't want to try it ever again. So that's like one use case where it hasn't been great. But then, for instance, with the same group, we tried to use it for simplification and summarization of text. And in that aspect, it clicked really well. Both groups, the opposers and the play-alongers, they were like both agreeing that there was a practical use, that when you're writing something super long, there is a chance to like use ChatGPT and just say, hey, can you simplify that for me, so that what I put in front of the customer is actually better. So that is something that we're doing still as an experiment. It's just like we're playing with it. We don't have a program for it yet, but at least we started to like see some potential use. Same thing about like taking that same text and using it for, ChatGPT can do spelling correction. It can spell check things for you. And sometimes we notice that in the process of like summarizing, taking that experiment, studying it to summarize, and then realizing that some of the errors that we had introduced in writing, they go away because it writes better English than some of our people, some of our content contributors who might not be, for instance, like English speakers or native speakers, right? So their English might not always be perfect. Not technical writers, but just in the bigger picture of just content contributors, anyone in the organization who can like edit or contribute some seed content to our documentation, for instance. So those are like some that have like gone well. Some other areas where it hasn't like worked that great. And stop me anytime, please, Stacey, if we're like going on over time. But you know, we had like people trying to like use it to write RFPs, and that is actually also another bag of like mixed results. It does help write about things that are like general, and anyone who has like ever worked on an RFP, they will know that it's actually a lot of repetitive text. Sometimes you're just trying to like rephrase something, or you're just trying to like copy someone else's style. And ChatGPT seems to do a great job for that. But then we have like all the privacy concerns and the fact that everything needs to be like double check. And that is like the message that we've been sharing within the organization. Anytime that someone knocks on our door, and we're not designated users in our organization, but because we're like the language experts in the organization, people will check with you and say, hey, is this like, how does this look? And we've been like very cautious of saying everything needs to be like double check. This is not something that you should be using unchecked for anything, which to me, it's a very nice parallel with what we've always done with like machine translation, right? The same way that we had to like control the use of Google Translate, especially when it involves private information or customer information. You know, not everyone is like super aware of what are the risks to our, you know, relationships with customers, our own like data privacy policies. So we've been trying to advocate on that regard and just advise caution. And hopefully over time we will be doing more things. The one area where it's really good, and I've used it myself, is I found myself like recently having to write, like I needed to write a lot of content for the internal evangelization of localization. And, you know, I could never find the time. And then one day I decided to like, you know, I need something more verbose that I can come up with like just 30 minutes. And I started to use like ChatGPT to support me with that in two ways, like writing about things like general localization, what the caveats to look for, or what it knows a lot about that, and it writes really well. And the other one has been just like giving us ideas. And this is something that I've been encouraging my team in one-on-ones as well. Whenever you have to write a presentation, whenever you need to write about a topic and you don't know where to start, just use it for ideation. Just to like get 5 bullet points about a topic, review them, dig deeper into one of them if you think it's a good one, or ask for another 5, or for another 5, or for another 5. And you know, the amount of information and ideas that are like thrown at you, it's great for overcoming writer's block, I would say.
I love that. We are, you know, first couple of minutes into the panel and we already have a bunch of use cases. That was brilliant. Thank you. And I'm so glad to hear that everybody found the common ground, that it works very well, at least in your company, for summaries and for trying to, you know, simplify, synthesize all the information. That's amazing. And thank you for the very creative advice for all the writers on the team. You know, if anybody needs to overcome the writer's block, GPT is right there for you. We are going to talk a little bit more later about how to govern the whole structure. So everybody here shares this concern that we don't really know maybe yet how to make it, you know, safer to use, more professional to use, how to use it at the enterprise level. But don't worry, everybody, we're going to get into that very soon. But first, I'm going to give the spotlight to Anna. So Anna, tell us about IKEA. What is your experience? What are your use cases?
Thank you, Stacey, and yeah, great introduction also from Jose. And I think a lot of potential use cases were also mentioned. But I can add that at IKEA we're not using ChatGPT or kind of similar type of technologies just yet, but what we've started with, being quite a big organization as we are, of course, as I mentioned, there are discussions or interested departments or people popping up everywhere nowadays. So what we focused on also from like the overall communication perspective is to create the awareness about what ChatGPT, for example, in particular is, and what it means to use it, how you should or maybe should not use it for business purposes in the open space. And so that has been quite a good, I think, first step to really to create the awareness, to share what exactly that means. Well, we talked about in the previous panels a lot about the data privacy and the ethical part of it, which I think is quite important for companies of different kinds and sizes. And I think it's really in that field of data ethics, digital ethics, where we need to focus, especially if we want that technology to kind of adopt to our culture and values, and to be kind of aligned with our mission. And I was also kind of reflecting now when I heard previous discussions, we were talking a lot about in the retail part of IKEA, which of course we are in the retail business, how that also transforms. And we talk about this kind of radical retail, which is automated, which is AI-based, data-driven. So there is a lot of similar kind of developments happening in different areas. And well, ChatGPT is also one of them when it comes to content creation, search of information, and summarizing, as it was already mentioned. But at the same time, we are also reflecting on, okay, it can be quite boring when you go to one of these kind of generated stores where you don't really have an experience, a full kind of experience of products. And especially if we talk about, for example, IKEA products, you really need to touch and feel, and you really need to understand, okay, how do they fit into your space at home, for example. So I think there is always this kind of in combination with these yeah.
Okay, I think we might have. Yes. And we're so sorry. We're gonna continue for now, hoping that the connection is gonna improve for you very, very soon. But we did get the important information, which is amazing. Also, I saw somebody was somebody was writing a comment about transliteration, and the first thing that popped into my head when talking about IKEA, those are the craziest names of every single object that I can never pronounce, I can never read. But I think it's stylish. You go to IKEA, you're not going to be able to pronounce what the desk is called, but you're still going to buy it. So it's very interesting to get this perspective as well. Bia, we're going to pivot to you, and I remember when we spoke the last time, you said something very interesting about compliance team addressing you and asking you about ChatGPT, whether you've tried it, how they can implement it. So would you mind telling us about your use cases and what teams are interested in trying this technology in your company?
Sure. Actually, several things. One of the use cases that we have explored, actually, a lot has been discussed today about content generation. And in fact, at Trendial, we use content generation instead of...
This is weird, right? And we muted her for the moment, but the sound keeps coming. We're played by technology.
Is the sound
technical team is on it?
Yeah, I think
the sound is okay for you.
Okay. All right. Okay. So one of the use cases is content generation for our product descriptions. We have millions of products on the platform, and we were facing challenges that machine translation couldn't address because our language pairs, Turkish to English and Turkish to German, were not rendering good results. And the input was also not highly editorial or moderated or perfect, let's say. So we had a go at content generation with highly curated and checked input. And that worked out for us. I was much faster and cost efficient than translation. And the service that we use for content generation offers GPT-3, and we tested it, and the results are good, but there was an element of uncertainty to it that we didn't want we simply didn't need to go there. We relied on templates that produce exactly the results that we want, and we can control the output the same way we control the input. And also, this is where compliance comes in. We had, a concern that we have products for children, and we sell fashion products, and there's important compliance elements when it comes to the composition of the items. What you say about the product needs to be true and precise and exact. And so we didn't want to introduce an element of risk that we didn't know. We didn't know how it could turn out, but we did test it, and the results were good. And we would love to test the new and improved version of this technology. So of course, we're very curious about ChatGPT. We have actually partnered with the data protection officer at our company, who's also an early adopter of this kind of technology. He has to deal with huge documentation, and summarization is a functionality that is very useful for legal environments. But of course, his main concern as data protection officer is what are employees of Trendyol entering into this tool, right? In the same way that in the past, as a Turkish-speaking company, many of my colleagues were using Google Translate to help them in their day-to-day tasks, and there was, potentially risk involved in there. There's the same situation with ChatGPT. Anything that you enter in the free version is no longer yours. So that's a problem.
Yeah, that's very interesting, though. You really brought up the most interesting aspects, and I think that's a good time to pivot to the governance and how can we actually set it up as a structured case in our companies. Because as Bia brought up all those many questions, who's responsible in the team? Is it localization that should be the ones who are testing it first? Should we create a dedicated experts? So Bia, if you want to take a look at this question and maybe let us know your opinion, and then we're going to pivot to Jose, who does have an idea, I would say, about how compliance with ChatGPT could work. But Bia, for you, first of all, why are you on the forefront of testing ChatGPT? How did localization go into it? And do you think it's a good idea for the localization team to be responsible for this new technology?
I'm not sure we're at the forefront. Several teams actually have been testing this. The SEO team, for example, for content creation as well. Last year, we're testing GPT-3 along with us. With ChatGPT, we've seen, posts on the public Slack channels about how it can be used. And like I mentioned, as a Turkish-speaking company, one of the really interesting uses for my colleagues is to help them write in English when it's, doubly difficult for them to do so, because a lot of them are still learning. And even though we are turning into an English-first company to be truly global, it's still not, as easy for many non-native speakers to communicate at a professional level in English. So I wouldn't say that we are leading the way, but we are early adopters. We are partnering already with other teams that are interested and that are compiling information about these tools. We also compile information about other AI tools, for example, AI video creation, which and subtitling and other all sorts of voiceover, all sorts of different tools. And we're looking at the potential risks and coming up with a plan to introduce some guidelines about using this tool and some risks that everyone needs to be aware of. And then there's
beautiful. That's good to know.
Right, which is hard. Yeah.
Absolutely. Jose, I'm gonna go to you again, because I know that in your company at Cooper, you had a couple of ideas how to at least start dealing with compliance side of things, and maybe how to structure it in the future.
Yeah, so in our case, I think that like something like ChatGPT, the same way that, again, I keep drawing like parallels to machine translation and Google Translate. It is so hard to just try to control it. So the best next thing that we can do is really evangelize about it. We can definitely do the same thing that we've done about using Google Translate. We can go into our intranet, and we can be the ones that are first writing about the concerns that we have about ChatGPT, about the risk to privacy, about the risk of accuracy, and just try to inform people and tell them don't use it or use it cautiously. And in the case of translation, for instance, our messages, this might be unpopular in a localization event, but my initial message is don't use it for translation. Unless you speak the language and you're going to be able to read it and double check it, don't use it. So all of these things will become for us slowly but surely part of our intranet. And this like serves two purposes. Like one is like that we write guidelines. We write like what to expect and how to use it for what use cases and with what to consider and what to look out for. And then it also has like a secondary aspect, which is like self-promotion, right? As a small team within a 4,000 people organization, we want to like get the visibility of just being, hey, since this relates to language, we know better than most, right? That is why it's so important to do things like joining this type of events. I think for myself, my team, it's just we need to know more than the general population of our organization so that we can just, under the banner of like language and doing right in writing language, whether it's English or it's later on other fronts, that we are perceived as the experts. I think that is like, you know, it's self-help and at the same time, it's the right thing for the organization in lieu of a AI dedicated team that is like looking at this. And by doing that also, whenever that happens, whenever we have like a dedicated team that's looking into how to use this overall for like content generation, then we'll be there as pioneers and as like early adopters so that we can join that conversation. And to be honest, in corporate environment as such as ours, that's the best that we can really hope for.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm glad to hear that that's what you're doing. And I honestly, I love the plan. I understand all the difficulties about it, but I love the direction you're taking with it. At least, you know, educating, bringing awareness, as Anna mentioned before. And my next question is going to be to Anna. So I know that you already mentioned that you just starting, you know, playing with the technology. So you don't really have it set up in the company. But I think it would be interesting to know for us, since IKEA, you know, it's a huge brand. You definitely cannot just go for it, but you do need some proof that that's sufficient enough. So do you know what maybe metrics or what tasks would be sufficient in order to start implementing ChatGPT as a part of the enterprise process? So is there anything that would, you know, convince you to go and use it? If that metric existed, what would it be for you? How would you know that now it's ready to implement?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Stacey. And I hope my connection is better now, but let's try. Yeah, I think in our case, we would like to, of course, work with innovation and development a lot. And this is the area that will be handling these type of pilots or tests that are now being kind of selected for this type of technology as well. And I think what they are looking into is what use case or what type of use of this technology will bring the most value, how it will be aligned with our approach, with our digital ethics, and how does it fit into our culture. So as I mentioned in my previous question as well. So I think also when I'm potentially thinking from my area, so from the languages and localization is, I could imagine a few cases, and it is, yeah, for now, at least for me, it is also a little bit difficult to imagine how it will impact the translation part as such. But I'm just thinking about different areas around it. So, for example, we are struggling in many cases because we have such a big amount of content, and then when we are translating it, then there are a lot of queries that are coming up, and then there is quite a manual process to actually get the replies to those queries, that you have to consult this person and that person, and then it circles around through the whole different departments before you can actually kind of provide the answer, which might take, I don't know, it can take a day, it can take multiple days, but for like searching through this amount of content and actually providing the reply to the query, that could be one case, for example. But also, as mentioned, I think this kind of summarizing, again, thinking about the vast amount of content that we have, how can we summarize it? How can we apply our simple IKEA way of communicating and writing and kind of creating that language for the many people that we normally talk about? So that I think where tools like this can actually support. And also, as maybe also Bea and Jose mentioned, to build on that is actually we have quite a lot of people whose role is actually not a content creator or writer per se. They might be subject matter experts, for example, in their area, but they are not professional writers. So that could be actually a great tool. And then maybe we don't have these big capacity of copywriters that we can hire or that we can go and outsource. So I think that's where this tool can actually be very much supporting the productivity and also the ideas or some kind of a start of an idea generation that I could see as well. But of course, yeah, as I said, we embrace the technology, but we do it in a cautious way, as we did also, for example, with the IKEA Place app, where you can actually place IKEA products in your room. So AI is being used in that kind of context. Yeah, it is out there, but of course we did quite a lot of research and quite a lot of development effort was happening. So I think yes, that's we are on a good path, but I think it's more it's not maybe just to kind of we need to understand what that technology brings, and I think these events like today I think is very insightful as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. You're going straight into it. Yeah, exactly. We do need proven use cases. We need to see how it works. I love hearing that during our panel, though, a lot of you are mentioning that ChatGPT is not just about creating content. Very often it's about already having an expert and just helping them to express themselves better, which is very interesting. I think the previous panels haven't really touched that much. So before I throw the first open question into the room, I wanted to remind our audience, please use the Q&A section. Please vote for the questions you like the most. We're going to start taking your questions in a minute, straight after I use my privilege of being moderator, and I'm going to go with the first question. So I'm absolutely certain that in the next 6 months, you'll be hearing hundreds of GPT pitches for your companies. So what real problems would you like to be addressed in those pitches that you're suddenly going to hear? And this is an open question, so whoever wants to tackle it first, just go for it.
Yeah, so actually, there's one of the questions in the Q&A is a great answer to this. We could potentially use these large language models or ChatGPT to restructure this ambiguity to improve the source content. So that if we are using, for example, a custom machine translation model or we are using, once we have amassed a good translation memory and maybe good training data, then we make sure that the source content is top-notch so that we obtain great output with less resources and more efficiently, less training. This is, I guess, one of the potentials that make me more excited about ChatGPT, that you can potentially train it with less data than previous technology.
Yeah, thank you. That was very smooth answering the question in the chat as well. Thank you so much. Yeah, definitely very interesting perspective. I can tell that a lot of people want to know about using ChatGPT in localization/translation. So we're talking about generation of content a lot. That's true. What about using ChatGPT in localization/translation? Jose, would you like to take this one? No? Okay, you wouldn't want to?
No. I can say it. I'm not going to be
just say it out loud.
Just don't use it. So that's my take for that. It's like, it's not ready. It's not, we have like machine translation. We got it to a point where it's like so evolved and it's producing such good results. Don't get distracted with the fact that ChatGPT is just easier to use. Yes, it's easier to use. They've done a great job of giving us like an easy interface. Now will be a vendor that comes and tells you, hey, you can like bring it into your TMS, and then you will, oh, maybe I should use it for that. But the technology behind it, it's not yet as good. And in the conversations today, they have like, it's been like mentioned like here and there, right? It's not yet as good as what we have at the moment. So I tried it myself. I tried to even like generating content in a couple of languages that I can at least write in, and there was like very basic mistakes that the English counterpart doesn't do. So I would say don't use it. Just don't use it yet. Maybe we'll use it in the future, but do what I always recommend doing, what I try to do in my professional practice all the time is like, just wait for the experts to tell us that this is working great, and then you do it. But before that, just stick to the things that work. And right now, it's not translation. People want to use it to be funny about just like getting something done quickly. You take your chances, you take the risk. We'll continue to evangelize against it, but it's still useful, yes. And it's very easy to use, and you can have it in your phone, and there is no apparent limit to the number of words that you can get. But can you trust it? Not for now.
Okay, I can see that it was a very polarizing question already, but that's good. That's interesting. Bea, Anna, do you have other opinion, or do you think you more or less agree and you would like to give it more time unless you start using it for translation?
I agree with Jose that results haven't been tested. There hasn't been time to test results at a large scale as they have with machine translation models. But what I would say is, well, test it for your particular case. If you have, if you have a machine learning scientist in your team or a data scientist that is keen on fine tuning ChatGPT for a specific content type that you have, try it and see how it works for you. I would love to do it myself. And so I am just a tiny bit more adventurous than Jose, I guess, in this.
Don't get me wrong. I try
Okay.
everything. I just don't want people who don't invest as much time as I will. I will spend tons of hours in testing this out, attending these events, reading about it, right? And asking people who know. But if you're not going to put in like that type of research, then my advice is don't do it. Just stay away.
Mm-hmm. I have been looking for test results on, from experts in machine translation, and there's a few out there, but not enough to be confident that ChatGPT is substantially better than tried and true, machine translation models.
And we face the risk of like, again, demonizing it the same way that we did with MT for so long. So at one point, someone's going to come with like, oh, look at the epic fail from using ChatGPT. And then that will like set us back in actually trusting a technology that is good for some use cases by using it for the wrong use cases. So that's why I was saying that I'm worried about us misusing it.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I love it. Definitely a very mature position. We need to wait and see where it leads us, more research. I personally love it. Anna, I cannot leave you out of this conversation. Where are you on this polarizing scale? Are you into testing right now, going full speed, or are you also on the more of a cautious side and you would like more research first?
Yeah, I would say, I'm kind of maybe a bit torn in both, but I would say from the company perspective or from, I agree. I mean, it's we need to test, we need to try it out. As I said, we need to see where is the best value that it can bring, so that we can actually develop it further and accept it in a more kind of positive way. And as I said, it's probably difficult to see, for example, like the use cases mentioned where you can automate, like you can do the automated post editing with it. But then I'm kind of wondering if you're doing kind of one automation and then you are building another automation on top of it, what kind of result it will bring. But I think it's worth doing the tests and seeing the results. And also possibly if you can train it on your specific content, then probably the results can be quite good. And at the same time, I'm thinking always when we, of course, now talk a lot about content creation and kind of skipping the target or skipping the whole translation part, where you can actually generate content in the local language already using the tool. So so it's a little bit like I just want to see in the which direction actually this will go. And as we said, maybe in the English it's quite good, but what about the other languages?
Exactly.
Yeah, thank you. I just saw Konstantin. I think he didn't find the reaction how to raise his hand, but he decided to just jump in, and I saw him on camera for a couple of seconds with his hands up. Konstantin, do you have a comment or question?
No, it's 4 minutes. The timing information.
You look like
okay, thank you.
Time for like a few last questions.
A moderator hallucination. You look like that for a second.
Yes, today I'm the hallucination.
That's what I thought, 100%. Okay. I mean, do you have a new question, which I think is very interesting, and that's more of a localization question, I think, rather than ChatGPT at this point. But what is the role of the linguist in the loop with this new environment, with this new technology? Should translators stop calling themselves translators? And if yes, what should they call themselves? And could the new label bring it a redefinition of the pricing model? So I guess that's the question of, are we now content creators? Are we now rewriting something? So what is your thoughts on having this linguist in the loop in this new environment?
My take is that the additional creativity and style, the human aspect, once you've used ChatGPT for a little while, you start seeing how very monolithic and stiff it is in its voice, in the approach to answering questions. It's always the same structure. It's always, the same thinking. It's based on a data set that's, very biased to one language and one way of writing. And I guess also it's being moderated with certain guidelines. So if you want to have your content in a particular style to be recognized, to be unique, then that is, I think, still the labor of humans.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Thank you. That was a very good answer. I guess we do have a couple more minutes. So I'd like to ask you, what are your thoughts on entrepreneurs and established TMS systems? Where should they focus their energy in the future? Because again, we're entering this new era of this new technology, and I guess the people who will be on the forefront are these entrepreneurs and, potentially maybe TMS systems. So where do you think they should focus their attention and energy to succeed?
So are we thinking about? Are we thinking about like people who are like in the tech, like from a technology entrepreneurship, or like from a language entrepreneurship? What is?
Actually, that's a good question. Let's talk about both, because both are definitely involved and both are affected by this technology.
Yeah, so I think that based on the conversation from today, that is like from the language side of things, and definitely there is an opportunity for going for that market of like the prompt engineering, or the so much better named content engineering, right? So that is going to be a concept that is going to be like leveraging this technology and is going to be super relevant. So anyone who can see a business model and there's a great time to start your content engineering agency or service. So that could be an individual, that could be a few people, that could be, but there's a lot of opportunity. And again, hype opens up a lot of doors. So that might also be an opportunity for investors and to get something nice going. But then when it comes to like companies, I think that is, or at least my hope, this is not what I think is going to happen, but my hope is that we're going to see applied cases of how to use this for content you already have. So I really hope that I could have like my own documentation from my own organization talk to me in the same way that I can talk to ChatGPT, and it gives me insights about how to use my own suite of products. Anyone who can like support that, anyone who's like making strides on that, that's a conversation worth having. I think that there's a lot of potential. And again, as someone said earlier, it's like better, I think it was Olga, better to be a pioneer in this than like follow after.
Yeah, I agree. Do you have any other opinions? Okay. Constantine, you reappeared again. Hopefully you're not my moderator's voice glitching nightmare. Is it time to give you the floor? Okay, perfect. Thank you, everybody. It was a very interesting discussion. I loved all the use cases that we brought up. I love all this conversation about how we can approach this from the governing point of view, how we can have some guidelines. That was amazing, very insightful. Definitely looking forward to exploring this technology a lot more. And thank you, everybody. And I'm going to give the floor to Constantine, because I believe he has a surprise for everybody.
Yes, well, thank you very much. Oh la la, sorry. The surprise guest for today, for those who have endured through the 3.5 hours of this event, incredibly showing stamina, resilience, and perseverance in search of more knowledge and insights, I salute you and I congratulate you. This is a person who is always there when something new is cooking up. Whenever the language industry is on the verge of another revolution or another discovery, whether it's a country, whether it's a piece of technology, a practice, just new exciting people who come up and stir the stew, there's always a person who is always there at the beginning of the process, at the beginning of all things. So I would like to welcome on stage my old friend and mentor, Renato Beninato. Renato, throughout your career, you've always been on the cusp, on the verge, on the brink of new things to happen. And I think today, with the amount of people that we've seen joining and the incredible insights from all the panels, from Marco, and the things that we've learned today, I think something is starting. And I know there is conservatism and there is some resistance to the idea, there is some anxiety, but still the level of awareness about language technology is unprecedented. So what is going to happen to us now? What is the real takeaway from this for the people who have stayed with us all this time? What do they carry home? What is their learning from today? Is it possible to summarize? You're on mute.
Okay, thank you so much for inviting me and organizing this amazing, really great session. You took the initiative and ran with it, which is fantastic. So, and thank you for the kind words. I reciprocate. You're the same. You're always at the right spot at the right time with the right questions. So what I listened to today was a little bit, and I would say as an introduction that I have resisted talking about ChatGPT because everybody's talking about it. And I thought that it was a moment for me to shut up and listen instead of preaching from the beginning. But I think that we learned a lot, that there's a lot of things that are changing and a lot of things that are staying the same. And I took some notes and I will run through them really quickly. I noticed that we have a tendency to speak in terms of absolutes. And when we talk about the impact of new technologies in our industry. And also, I felt that there was a sense of fear and uncertainty, or as Jose said, worriness. He's worried about what is going to happen. Some of us are excited, some of us are scared, but it is clear that we're all impressed with what ChatGPT has done. Everybody in the world, it's not us in the language industry, it's something that is impacting every aspect of the business life. So the question that I ask myself, and I still don't have an answer, is that this is definitely an innovation. But is it an incremental innovation or something that is going to improve the way we do things today? Or is it a disruptive innovation, something that changes the way we work completely? And I think it's going to be a bit of both, because one of the things that I've learned in observing our industry over the years is that we embrace everything that is new that comes into the industry. And these new technologies, new ideas, new processes, new methods coexist for a long time with the ones that were in place before. So there is an element of what is the time that is going to take. Marco said 100 million users in 2 months, a record seen in technology adoption, but it's not the same for everybody. And there are people who have not tried it yet. So there is this element also, is the classic Danny Kahneman quote that I'm not too concerned about AI, I'm more concerned about human stupidity. There is this element of human stupidity that we don't take into consideration when we're thinking about technology adoption, right? So I took note of a couple of words that appeared in the comments and in the conversation and this is a trend that I think we need to keep in mind as we adopt ChatGPT or large language models. Is Ariel Baldo said that human intervention will be paramount. Jochen talked about the human in the loop. Marco talked that we believe in humans, which is the tagline of Translated. So what I take from this is that based on all the discussions, conversations, imposter syndromes, as Jose and Diego mentioned, I think that we as professionals and humans in this space are going to adapt to work with it. And whether this disrupts the model, how, and when we talk about a disruptive model, something that changes the way we do things, is it going to change how we're paid? Is this going to change how we deliver? Is this going to change how we think about the product that we do? I don't know yet, right? I think that the passionate defense that Jochen and the panel, the research panel made about developing alternative large language models was important to hear, and that that the Europeans don't get overwhelmed and overtaken by the Chinese and the Americans who lead with the research. And I liked the analogy with the Autobahn, and Ariane and Marco also shared lists of alternatives to GPT, but it's clear that they're not easy to use and they're not as widely available as ChatGPT. So the thing about ChatGPT that is really transformational is that it's free and it's easy to use. Anybody can use, anybody can access it. It's like a little bit like search, right? Those of us who remember the Lycos and the crawlers and eventually Yahoo and Alta Vista and so on, we were amazed at how searches became essentially free, right? I think that Bia brought this points of, and this was a thread that came through all the presentations, the issues about governance, security, privacy. These are important things. My take on this is that those are the classic, will the noise of the trains spoil the milk of the cows. These are the topics that every new technology that comes into the industry, we talk about the same thing. And it's from a scared perspective. I like the way Diego addressed this. And I think that the people who really need to think about these things are going to think about the things and are going to solve them. For us, the world at large, we don't worry about it. It's not our problem. It's somebody else's problem. I'm talking about this more as a translator and as an LSP, right? The clients are going to have these issues. They're going to have this constraints, and they're going to express them when they're buying the services from the industry as providers. I liked very much Marco's point about the economic model of the internet being at risk. I agree with him, but this is something that is not going to happen overnight, because it makes me think of the, what was the name of that thing? Well, I forgot. My memory is disappearing. The thing that you would replace walking. And then
trottinette électrique, the scooter, the line.
Yeah, with the scooters. Yes, the original one. I forgot the name. And the thing disappeared. It didn't revolutionize. It had a lot of promise, but it didn't materialize.
Diego says Segway.
So, the Segway. Thank you. The Segway. The guy, the last CEO of Segway, died falling off a cliff on the Segway. So there are some technologies that can be very disruptive, are very innovative, are very important, but they don't get adoption. And we might find out that with a lot of competition, I always have the poster here, the Nimdzi language landscape to remind people that when you have 800 technologies in the translation industry, you need people to decide, to moderate, to evaluate, and nobody has a single answer to all the problems. So we're going to have, I think that it was Kirtivashi who put a comment, wait 3 months. This is pretty much what I've been saying. In the next 3 months, there is going to be a plethora of competitors, and we're going to be in the same dazed and confused state that we are when we have to make a choice on a new language technology. And two more points to finish. I think that it's important to keep in mind the Amara's law. It's always relevant. We tend to overestimate the effect of technology in the short run and underestimate it in the long run. So whatever our predictions are, they're probably wrong. And last but not least, I think that it was a conversation that you and I, Konstantin, had about the fact that people shouldn't be afraid to try and to start new experiments, right?
Exactly. That's why we organized the whole event, to make the ChatGPT thingy more familiar to the people, and so that they feel that this is the perfect storm right now to start trying with it and not give it away to the IT people.
And don't get stuck with it, right? And,
why not?
Exactly. Don't get stuck waiting for something else to happen. Just try, play. It's very simple. And one of the things that this is just an anecdote. I love the fact that I can write code on ChatGPT, and I asked ChatGPT to write code for me in different programming languages for stupid tasks, and it writes the code. But I'm not an IT person. I don't know where to run that code. What do I do with it? So there's no point. It's like you can ask it to do a very professional task for you, but if you don't know what to do with it, it has zero value, right? And what Jose said at the end, when you're thinking about comparing it to machine translation, just don't do it. It's not what it is designed for. Try to find ways to use these large language models to improve your productivity, to take away bureaucratic tasks from you, instead of the way that you're doing a translation today, using CAT tools with machine translation integrated into it, is more productive at this stage than ChatGPT is. Marcos mentioned something like 5 seconds, when in Google Translate you have it in milliseconds, right? And finally, the last thing, I want to congratulate Jose and Diego Cresceri, because both of them win the award of the most interesting glasses in the whole presentation. And those were my highlights.
Perfect, Renato. So there we have it. We have finally a summary out of this whole event in a short way. I expected you to summarize it in one sentence, but it took a little more than that. But I think you covered every person speaking and highlighted.
I paid attention.
Yes. While you were paying attention, I went out and I bought the domain customgpt.com. So this is my takeaway from this event. We're not going to be just doing machine translation now, but customizing the larger transformer models and starting the projects with those buyers that have the audacity to try it right now. And not just ChatGPT, there's of course the Jurassic model from Israel. There's a number of European models, OpenGPTX, the Finnish model, the Spanish models, the Swedish models, you name it. And I think this is about time when we start exploring. Today, Microsoft published a paper where they have large language models evaluating the quality of human translation. So it would be not post-editing, but vice versa, revised by the machine. Today, OpenAI released ChatGPT 3.5 Turbo, the new model. The thing is moving really, really fast. And I think the speed of this innovation is tremendous, right? We did the right thing with this conference, and we went ahead before people were ready. People were telling us, right, let's do it in 1 month from now. We need to prepare to get the audience. No, 2 weeks, let's go. Let's go. But there's no time. And I think
you are absolutely right.
In this spirit,
You're
yes.
absolutely right. Timing is key here.
Where's the wave? We must ride it. And I hope that through this event, we'll meet more audacious people who want to ride the wave. Anyway, Renato, thank you so much. Any final statement for today? one
thank you,
sentence.
Bastian, for being insightful and timely in organizing something that is very important. It's in top of mind for everybody in the industry. Kudos and congratulations to you. This is your merit.
And I would like to thank I would like to thank all the panelists and the organizer. Without Kate, this wouldn't have been possible. Would like to thank AP Portugal team, Gonzalo, Paolo, Mario, Kasia. Thank you so much for hosting it in a very professional way. We had no time to prepare, but you made it all work really, really fine. Thank you, and till we meet again. Bye-bye.